All right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Not Just Politics podcast. We've been on a little bit of a break. Gavin is unfortunately not with us. We are not in Pittsburgh. We are in the great city of Chicago, mourning the loss of Lori Lightfoot. Still to this moment, I'm so sad that she's not here, so I can't see the balloon pants that she always wore. And
she had a style that was all her own.
All her own. She wouldn't talk to white reporters. It was just a real big thing. But we are here with Christian Górecki, founder of the Unite America movement. His second time on the show.
That's right.
Welcome back.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for coming to visit me in Chicago.
Of course. Thanks for having me, and thanks for getting us this awesome setup we have here.
Yeah, we're in our multi-million-dollar studio right now.
Yeah, this is actually an upgrade. I have left Point Park for good, and this will now be where we shoot the show. And as we were talking about in the car, I'm talking to the Saudis right now. I'm trying to get them to buy this. I'm going to be shooting the show from UAE tomorrow.
Yeah, we're waiting on an email back from the Crown Prince, yes. But we're hopeful, right?
Very hopeful that an offer will come through from somebody. I need somebody to buy this thing. We got to start making some money here off of this, But anyway, what have you been up to, sir? How has everything been going?
It's been going good. Just been trucking along. We finally, thanks to my director, Mike, over there.
Yeah, shout out, Mike. Thank you for helping us run everything today, sir.
Mike Heck of directing fame.
Yeah.
We were able to secure a shared space studio, so we're going to be pumping out hopefully some more videos here. We're going to be going to the Braver Angels convention in Kenosha, Wisconsin in a few days. Going to do a lot of networking there. Going to see some of our friends, so very excited about that.
Yeah, I didn't even mention that. Yeah, that's why I'm here. I flew in yesterday. I took the Great American Midwest tour on the plane. I boarded at Pittsburgh International. I boarded the plane at 7. I was supposed to land in Chicago at 7:50, and I hopped in your car at noon because there were thunderstorms.
Once I woke up at the right time to go get someone.
Right, and then
I thought his plane crashed. He was nowhere to be found.
I thought that I was dead because there were, right as we crossed over Lake Michigan to land at Midway Airport, there was just out of the blue thunderstorms that hit, and it was the worst turbulence. No lie, I thought that it was over. For a brief moment, it was so bad that I was like, this plane could go down in this moment. It was spooky, but we got redirected to Indianapolis. And it was so funny. The pilot gave us no details. He was so cryptic. He was like, all right, well, guys, we're going to have to redirect to Indianapolis. So, it's better to be alive there than dead here. We were like, what?
So he didn't tell you it was because of the storm, or
not initially. We knew, right? We knew that it was bad. It looked stormy outside. There was crazy turbulence. Yeah, the worst mistake I ever made was looking at the wing of that plane. That was the worst mistake I ever made. I'll never do that again. But we stayed at Indianapolis for an hour. I almost went to the bar to get a drink. It was almost like getting a drink at 9 in the morning.
Loosen up a little bit for the next leg of the flight.
Yes, legitimately. I was like, I need to try to loosen up. But then we got back on the plane, and I was told by many people who were much more seasoned flyers than I was, this was going to be, 30-minute flight, 45-minute flight. We were in the air for 2.5 hours, and I maybe I'll just post the picture that I got from the lady beside me on the plane. Maybe I'll put it in here and post to show people. We flew out west, all the way over Des Moines, Iowa. We flew over 7 different states or something crazy. We were almost in Nebraska.
It's when I saw that, I'm like, wouldn't it have just been better to wait in Indianapolis for the storm to pass?
Genuinely,
if we would have saved fuel.
If we would have waited. Even if we would have waited an hour and a half, an additional hour and a half at Indianapolis, we probably still could have got to Chicago quicker. And the pilot was like, well, good thing we're taking a shortcut. I was like, shortcut? Yeah. Spent 5 hours on a plane, and then I was just wiped out for the rest of the day.
Yeah, it seems like an additional layover would have been preferable to that huge detour while you have to sit on a plane in relatively uncomfortable plane seat compared to just airport bar in Indianapolis.
Yeah, I mean, there was nobody beside me. So that was kind of nice. The lady that was in this seat, on the other side of that empty seat was chill. There were a bunch of like children on the flight, and in the middle of that turbulence, they were so oddly. I was expecting them to be freaking out. I think the adults freaked out more than the kids on the flight.
Yeah.
But anyway, so
They're desensitized from what they see on TikTok. So.
These kids are like unfazed now. Like when the war happens, these kids are gonna just be like so. We'll be sending them actually because we'll be like, you already have PTSD from TikTok.
PTSD from Fortnite.
From the, like people talk about how, and this will be brief, but it's like people talk about how like the Call of Duty lobbies in the early 2000s were just a wild west. People just saying like crazy shit to each other, like just wild stuff.
Yeah,
that's like TikTok is now that for these kids. They're like, oh, I grew up. I mean, when I had Instagram, I was watching people.
They're going to be like approaching their 30s and then be like, y'all don't remember MW2 lobbies? Like,
that was what it was. But yes, we are here. I got here. We're here for one more day. Everybody flies in tomorrow. I fought with Expedia over this rental car. That was a fiasco I had to figure out. But we're going up to Kenosha for the Brave Rangers. We'll be up there for Brave Angels for a couple of days. Like you said, that'll be great. We have a lot of exciting stuff planned for that. And so that'll be fun. Piling everybody in the car tomorrow, heading up there in some, as you said, defunct university, Carthage College.
Carthage, yeah.
I don't even know how they like find these places for these conventions.
Yeah, I know people that graduated from there, so it's kind of weird. I think they went out of business maybe a year and a half ago, maybe 2.
Do you know why?
Their attendance was just low.
I guess.
I think that's a problem like all universities are having right now. People don't want to pay for 4-year colleges anymore.
And to be fair, they probably shouldn't.
Yeah.
I've been completely disillusioned to what universities are. So I do, and I've said this for all, I do think that, when Gen Z gets older and has kids in their 50s, because that's the projections now. The projections are like, Gen Z's not buying a house until they're 40, not having kids until 60 or whatever, like something crazy.
Well, I think what's going to happen with like the increasing commonality of remote jobs, I think a lot of people are going to make money here and live in another country. I think that's going to become, like, that's already common, but I think it's going to become, that's common for, like, especially single people, but I think it's going to be more common for young families of people who just got married and they can't afford to have a house or kids in the U.S., so they're going to move to Argentina or something, place like that.
You think they're going to go to Argentina? Or something like that. They're gonna
Argentina, like it would be. It's the same time zone as the U.S. So you're not all the way on the other side of the world, and that in terms of that, like you can call your parents or your other friends or relatives, and they'll be up at the same time you are.
This is a good point.
It's a country where like the U.S. dollar goes really far. So even though like as U.S. citizens, you get taxed on your citizenship. Like if you can move to another country, it doesn't matter if you're making money there. You get taxed on it as a U.S. citizen.
Okay.
So we're the only country that does that, but I think it will become a lot more common with remote jobs becoming more prevalent. But even with that, even if you're getting taxed at 50%, that 50% you get to keep is going to go a lot farther in a different country. Yeah. Especially where like housing's not as expensive, things like that. And you can do it just to save money, and you build up money, and then you come back when you can buy a house because you'd be saving so much money just on rent.
Yeah.
Even if you don't want to buy a place there.
That's a great point. They're talking about that now, how there are some people that are working like 3 remote jobs at one time. They've got like triple monitor setups, and they're just out here working 3 full-time remote jobs, which I don't even know if that's possible. I couldn't do that, but it's crazy what's going on.
I think it makes sense too, because a lot of office jobs, you have the work that you are assigned, you get done, and you don't really get rewarded for being faster at it. Like they're just going to give you more work. So a lot of people, if they do that when they first get there, maybe for a year, 6 months or whatever, and they're not getting a raise, they're not getting a promotion, they're going to be like, why am I being so productive if I'm just stuck in this position? Mm-hmm. So they kind of make busy work for themselves. They artificially take longer to get things done, and it just becomes inefficient and a waste of time.
I mean, is this country just a hollow? Is this just a hollow? I mean, truly, like if all the young people if you're correct, if people eventually start going to other places to work remote jobs, is this place just like, is this place just like Cracker Barrel now? There's just no one going. It's just empty. It's just empty Cracker Barrels all across the country. Like that might be a bad analogy, but it's just like there will be who is going to be left? The boomers? The boomers will be alive by then. The boomers will find a way to live another like 60 years somehow.
Yeah, it'll be like the value would just be the passport, the citizenship of the U.S.
Sure.
So yeah,
People will sell their. Has anyone sold their citizenship yet?
well, you can't really. I mean, you can't really do that. You could marry someone.
Of course.
Yeah.
But
Sure,
it's
there's someone who's done that. I mean, there are countries where you can buy citizenship, but it's very small, like island countries and stuff.
Has somebody would find a way in this country to like sell fake citizenship to people or like sell their own citizenship away like a Fortnite account with all
swap it.
yes. Just you thought like the credit default swaps were bad in the 2008. Wait till you get the citizenship default
swaps.
Wait till you get citizenship default swaps. Wait till you get the defunct citizenship. Shitty paperwork.
Yeah.
What is this country gonna? What is happening anymore in this place?
Yeah, who knows? It's something new every month. I mean,
as Theo Vaughn said, it feels like a shell corp.
Yeah.
This country feels like a shell corp for a bunch of other people.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty accurate way to look at it.
I think he's kind of right. Yeah. What do you think is honestly going to happen? Because we were talking last night about how we're both kind of shocked that Biden is even. And again, I don't wish death on anybody. That's not what I'm saying. But just like I didn't expect him to even make it through these 4 years.
Yeah,
it's remarkable. I mean, the guy.
I don't think anyone really did. If they're being honest, a lot of people thought
Right.
he was going to be at the very. Like, if he wasn't, not necessarily that he was going to die, but by the end of the 4 years, he's going to be too exhausted to do another one.
Which I think he has to be. What do you think they're giving him, honestly? Do you think that it is like, as Tim Dillon said, like a cocktail of like Moderna, Pfizer, or is it like have they put a chip in his head? Have they done that yet? And will they do that?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it might just be a combination of not having him do anything before he has to make a public appearance. A lot of like that's the only time he's going to exert energy all week.
Right. No chocolate chip ice cream.
No Rocky Road.
As Rogan said, if I was going to get him ready, I would be doing like no chocolate chip ice cream for a couple days up until he has to go do. Because during the State of the Union address, he was better.
Yeah.
There were a couple of moments where I was on the edge of my seat a little bit, like he was stumbling over a thought, but for the most part, it was like he was back a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And Trump is he on anything? Because he says he doesn't do any drugs, but it's got to be Adderall. It's got to be something.
There's the thing where he's apparently been on diet pills since the 70s. I don't know if that's true or not, but I know at one point in the 70s he was doing diet pills, and there's people that say he's never been off them and they give him a lot of energy or something.
So he hasn't found a diet pill to combat the 17 Big Macs a day, the 32 Diet Cokes a day, that this guy apparently eats like a college student still, apparently.
Apparently, although he doesn't drink or smoke or anything.
Doesn't drink or smoke, but his drug is McDonald's.
I guess,
which
yeah.
should be classify McDonald's as a drug at this point.
Yeah, probably. The thing with McDonald's, even they're like they've forgotten who they are. Like they're trying to be expensive now.
Right.
Like McDonald's was the place you went when you were hungry and you only had $12 in your bank account.
Yes,
right?
That's where you went. Have you seen this new Cosmics place that they're doing now?
Yeah, they're like trying to. I mean, like there was like I think like 2010-ish, McDonald's like redid all their like architecture. They started making places. That was cool, but we didn't expect price increases to go along with that.
No. Can you pass me that pillow beside you real quick, by the way?
Which one?
This other one? Yeah, right over there. Yeah. Thank you, sir. I'm gonna.
And I think like they're probably realizing they're probably losing money on that. They're going back on that mistake. I think Taco Bell
food is not cheap anymore.
Yeah, no, Taco Bell is like the only one that is very cheap.
Right.
They've kind of taken the place of like, we're when you're hungry but don't have a lot of money and don't want to cook. Like,
yes, and they've always marketed to like stoners and like druggies. Like that's been their core audience, I feel like, because it's the same 5 ingredients.
Yeah.
It's this. They have done like almost no innovation on the food.
Well, I mean, hey, they put like a Cheez-It thing in a quesadilla.
They did put a Cheez-It in a quesadilla.
Yeah.
And as I've said many a time, the Frankenfood's out of control. We were talking about this. We were in the store. The Ghost Energy cereal that they're now doing. Like Ghost Energy has a cereal. It's an abomination that should be destroyed.
The Starburst Crystal Ice.
The Starburst Crystal Ice.
I don't know, Mike, have you tried the Ghost cereal, the Ghost Energy drink cereal?
advertised as high protein. Hey guys, it's high protein. 17 grams of protein.
Yeah.
17.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, cereal is actually very cheap.
Right, yeah, that was crazy when he said that. He was like, I could see Americans eating cereal for every meal of the day. It's like, buddy, are you trying to piss people off? Like, what are you trying to do? But the Ghost Energy cereal is like Lucky Charms. It's got like marshmallow bits in it, and it's apparently Ghost, which I don't even understand. Is there like carbonation? Is it like Pop Rocks? Like when you put the milk on it,
I'm
is it
assuming it's just the flavor, right?
just the flavor, right?
Whatever chemicals that is, but
Whatever. Yeah, right. And how many grams? I
maybe
wonder.
you're supposed to not use milk. You're supposed to use the Ghost Energy drink in the cereal.
Oh, that's crazy. That would kill you, right? For sure.
It's gotta.
Tilt that mic up a little bit closer to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that would certainly kill a person, but it's really. But I don't want to get too lost in the weeds on that. I just had to bring it up because I was, the fact they're advertising it as a protein cereal.
Yeah.
I'm not for censoring anybody really, but the government has to step in at some point and shut this thing down. I mean, Christ almighty with these people. They have Kit Kat cereal now. Like, what else do we have? There is no line. This country, not that I've recently figured this out, but like, I feel like growing up and being an American to me is realizing that the culture that you live in is one without boundaries. Truly, there's like no line that people will not cross. No one has drawn a single line in the sand here.
Yeah. It used to be that, there was things you'd think of like, oh, I wish I could get that. I could get that. Now there's too many things you can get.
Yes, it's too much.
Many things.
It's a great point. We have like there's an overwhelming amount of choices that mean absolutely nothing. It's the George Carlin bit. He was like, everything that kind of matters has been reduced in choice. But if you go into Baskin Robbins, there's 31 different flavors of ice cream to choose from.
Yeah.
If you go down the cereal aisle, there's 18 different types of candy bars now that have been turned into a shit cereal for you to feed your children because why would you even give it to your kid? I don't even understand it. Like, my parents let us have some stuff, but it was like, they very correctly said, no, we're not giving you Lucky Charms before you go to school because, like, it's not.
Yeah.
I just don't get it. But I don't want to get lost in the weeds on that. We go back to this. This debate. But how many times are they just going to call each other, like, I feel like we should do a drinking game where every time, Biden calls Trump a felon and every time Trump goes after Hunter, you have to like take a shot or something. You have to like consume a little bit of a substance.
Yeah, every time he calls him Sleepy Joe.
Yes, calls him Sleepy Joe, calls him a moron. Every time Biden goes, was this country really going to elect a felon for office? You know what I mean? Like, what's going to happen? Like, is Biden going to, like, you ever like, my favorite thing that Biden does is whenever he's in the middle of a speech, he will like whisper a sentence every once in a while.
Yeah.
He'll be like, Donald Trump's a felon. Nobody should vote for him. Like, he'll like whisper a line. And, like,
he'll definitely like trail off a bit. Yes. For sure.
And then what is Trump going to do whenever I feel like whenever Biden trails off, Trump is just going to like use that opportunity to go after him. Like constantly. Like, what is this even? As Bill Burr had a great point. He was like, whose mind is not made up in this country? Like, whose mind is really getting changed by what's going on in these debates? I don't think there's a single person that's like, oh, well, Trump made a good point, but also there's that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, no one's. I think everyone already knows what they're going to vote for.
Yeah, I don't think it will have a high turnout. Like, I mean, people don't feel like they need to watch it because they're just going to see the clips of it.
Right. People are just going to watch the highlights anyway.
Yeah.
Because I feel like most people in this country are, and I'm guilty of this too, and I don't think this is healthy. I don't think we necessarily should be doing this, but I feel like most people are looking at this as like a comedy show. This is like this is like an SNL skit for most people. Like, or at least for a decent amount of people, is like, it's just going to kind of be a circus.
Yeah, I don't even really know what's going to get brought up in that debate.
Yeah, what are they going to talk about? Like, do either one of these guys have a single policy position anymore?
Well, it's one of the where it's like, what are they going to do? Because they can each say like, oh, he did this when he was president. But whether they're going to say, I'm going to come in and it's going to be different, they've both already been president.
Right.
So they don't have like this. That's every advantage like someone going against an incumbent always has is they
Yes.
did this, and this, but that's gone now.
It's your good point. It's gone. Yeah, and so, and Trump has been planning, undoubtedly. He's been planning for this. He's been putting people in the right positions. No one will accept the results of this. I feel like no matter who wins, somebody will not accept the results of this election.
Yeah, unless like RFK wins or something.
But then again, both.
Then they'll both say it was right.
Yes, everybody will be like, somehow the Kennedys are. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
actually,
Like,
right. Like they'll be
yes.
like the Kennedy family at it again, pulling all the strings. Like,
Right. Right. They'll somehow be like, no, the CIA actually helped him this time.
Yeah.
Right. Like, no one's gonna accept it. And then what's gonna? I can't. I'm not looking forward to whatever Point Park is gonna do. I was saying this. I was telling this to Jeremiah Cutright the other day. I hope that Point Park just keeps its mouth shut. I don't care what you feel about this.
Oh,
thing.
you mean the administration?
Even and the students, everybody. I just hope that when this thing happens, everybody just keeps their mouth shut. Like, let's just. I'm not saying ignore it. I'm not saying that it doesn't matter. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying for a brief moment of time when a political thing happens, everyone just shut their mouth for like a week and just look at it again. Just zoom yourself out a little bit and look at it for what it is.
Yeah.
No
one's gonna do that.
Which
but-
is that we have an octogenarian.
Yeah, two.
Two octogenarians,
Basically.
right? And we have like octogenarian plus over here. We have just the battle of old versus orange, but the orange is also old.
Yeah.
So what do we got going on over here? I can't wait. I'm gonna be watching it. I feel like we should make some kind of game. I won't drink, but I feel like we should make some kind of game with it.
Yeah, that'd
whenever
be
we
fun.
watch. Yeah, because Braver Angels is doing a watch party, but with all due respect, I feel like we should do our own, just with our little group. Just
Yeah, that'd
pile
be-
into somebody's. Do we have TVs in those rooms? How are we actually going to watch it? Somebody's got to
Well, we
bust
have
out the laptop.
laptops.
Yeah, somebody's got to bust out the laptop.
Yeah, they're gonna be
right?
streamed on whatever. So,
On Rumble.
well, I think every like news outlet on YouTube will restream it.
Yeah.
Like,
I just hope that Rumble does something. I hope that Rumble.
there probably is gonna be a stream on Rumble.
Yeah, I'd
I'm
love-
sure.
It'll be on like Quibi. It'll be on one of these like whack streaming services that no one
Quibi still
uses.
around?
I don't even know. Tubi, Quibi. These are all just
Oh,
like
yeah.
fake streaming services. Does
Well,
anybody?
Tubi's like a free one, right? It's like
I
a,
think so.
like
Yeah,
a free Hulu, basically.
yeah, I think you watch things in like 7-minute chunks or something.
I just think there's like
stupid.
a lot more ads. Yeah, I think it's like 10 or 12. I've used it once before, but it's
Crazy.
kind of what back in the day they had Crackle for a while. That was like a free streaming service, but it had like kind of subpar movies. Every once in a while there'd be a good one, but
Right, like
there
you
was
get
a
one.
lot it was funded completely by ads.
Yes.
So there was maybe twice as many ads per like movie that there would be on Hulu or something.
They should just do. You know what they should do? Whoever the moderator is, who's because I know that the one guy from CNN, Tapper, Jake Tapper.
Jake Tapper, yeah.
He's good, actually. He's like the only one at CNN that I'm like kind of okay with. Like I actually think he's like fair for the most part. I'm glad that he's the one moderating it. But would it not be hilarious? Like they should just kind of do like a podcast style ad read in the middle of the thing and be like, well, that was a great thing that Donald Trump said about immigration. And we
Yeah,
just want-
I mean, there's not. Usually the presidential debates don't have a sponsor, do they? Like,
But they should now.
okay, they probably do now.
I
to be
feel
honest.
like at this point where we are at in this country, Ridge Wallet, Shady Ray sunglasses, Raycon ear-
Raid Shadow Legends. Should,
Oh my God! Wait a minute, wouldn't that be so funny?
they both.
if they were like,
What if
no-
both Biden and Trump did an ad read, like Trump's Raid Shadow Legends and
that would
Biden's
be-
Ridge Wallet? Like,
Wouldn't that be hilarious if Trump was like, I know that I'm your champion, but let me tell you about these other champions, Raid Shadow Legends, and just starts going off? Like, would that not be fucking hysterical?
that'd be great.
I think that they should do it. And Trump would be like, use my code. God loves America. God bless the USA to get 50,000 coins in Raid Shadow Legends. They'll put Trump in the game. He'll be a champion in there. And his super move would just be like press the red button, just nuke the enemy team. That'll be his like super move.
Yeah, honestly, how are these guys not in Fortnite already?
I don't know. Please, Fortnite, get on this. I beg you, please. I mean, truly, what would Biden do? Biden should. Now here's the thing. Remember like the one meme of Biden I love is like when he's in the sunglasses walking along the lawn. And there's like the eagle behind
Oh
him. It's
yeah.
like, Biden should have like Shady Rays on during the debate. He should do an ad read for it. Somebody, whenever, it'll be great is if like when Biden's stumbling over an answer, if Trump like busts out like a Raycon speaker and he's like bumping. He loves like the YMCA song. It's like his favorite song. He's like,
Trump's?
people love it. Yes, Trump apparently at Mar-a-Lago will like DJ and he just plays the YMCA apparently. Should they walk out? Should they walk out to music? Do they currently walk out to music?
I think there's like music that plays when they both come out on the stage.
Like
That's not-
patriotic music?
Yeah, or like a little more formal. But like
Sure,
it could
but-
just be like, that would be cool if there was presidential candidate walkout songs.
Yes, can we please do like a UFC style fight walkout? Get them robes, get Trump like a Versace robe, get Biden a something, have them walk out. I know it seems like I'm making light of this whole thing, but Christ, it's the only thing I have left to do about this whole thing. It's all I got left, kind of. It's just like, it needs to be a little more, let's just kind of lean into the lunacy of this country a little bit. Let's have walkout songs. Let's have Trump do a raid. I love that raid. It would be so good if Trump did a Raid Shadow Legends ad.
Yeah.
Somebody should do it because honestly, I mean, my favorite meme that I've seen, and I may have talked about it right in the show. I'm saying it again, apologies, but it was just a screenshot of when they first announced the debate was happening, and then the caption was, "We're about to witness the Manhattan Project of pharmaceutical stimulants." Like, these guys are just going to be on some crazy cocktail of who knows what. But I said they should just let them do drugs on the stage, kind of. Like, they should let them vape. Trump needs a Zyn sponsorship. How has Zyn not given like Trump a can?
Yeah, I mean, do they sponsor Tucker Carlson or is he just obsessed with them?
I don't know. I don't know if they officially sponsor him, but he put them on the map. Him and Nelk.
Yeah, I know, but
Put
Nelk like
them-
sponsors them though, or they
They
sponsor.
they
Nelk
do
or whatever.
sponsor Nelk. They should sponsor Tucker. I think the Nelk boys should like moderate this. Could we please get someone that like doesn't know a thing about politics to moderate this debate? Would there be nothing better than just having the debate be on the Full Send podcast? Just a podcast format debate run by Full Send.
Yeah.
Run by those guys. I would love that. I mean, people have always talked about like Rogan should honestly like be the moderator of a debate. Like that would be it would be kind of interesting to get somebody from the independent media, like Sagar and Jetty from Breaking Points. Or
Yeah,
something like
he'd
that.
be good.
It would be interesting. Like get somebody sort of outside of the political establishment or the corporate media to moderate being Full Send. There'd be nobody better, I think, than just having those guys, because they would ask the dumbest question. They would ask the dumbest.
I actually think we should get The Rock up there.
Would be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, he's gonna really control the situation.
He would control the situation for sure. Would Trump just start, if The Rock moderated the debate, would Trump just get into it with him? Like, it would be so funny if Trump just ignored Biden and just started getting into it with the moderator.
Just starts
Like,
building rapport with him.
You voted for Joe Biden in 2020, Dwayne. You're responsible for this country. Like, you know what I mean? Like The Rock endorsed Biden in 2020. Now he's like no longer endorsing him. So Trump would be like trying to get The Rock to like vote for him. That's the other interesting thing too, is like, and another thing I've like recently been thinking about, speaking of The Rock, is how like there are people in Hollywood and in other places that just have this idea that social media activism is just your numbers. It's like just how many followers you have, how much reach do you have, like how many people can see this post. They don't really understand that activism is like not at all anything on social media. Like that's not where the real activism happens.
My views on this have kind of changed a little bit.
Okay, that's interesting.
I actually think it's both. So if you're gonna do something in person, film it. Otherwise, it didn't happen.
You've always said this, and I kind of get where you're coming from.
And I mean, this social media, like, it does have an impact. Like, things that were fringe ideas like 10 years ago are mainstream now. So, and that is because of social media, because there are things that you could like people wouldn't really talk about in public.
Sure, and I get that, but like, you don't think that Brave Rangers has done anything? Like, Brave Rangers doesn't film anything, but they've had like thousands of debates and discussions of all over the country. Like,
No,
that stuff's real.
No, it's real, but like they're severely limiting themselves by not filming it. You know, because they can do all of that, but if that's not there for other people to see, it's like you have to be there for it to happen.
Sure, I get that, but they're also isn't there enough content out there though already? Maybe not enough bridging content,
Yeah,
but like at
that's what I'm
that
saying.
point, isn't there like so much content?
Well, I
that,
mean,
like,
the
you
entire
don't-
idea, like behind all the orgs we're involved with, is to get more bridging content out there, to get more bridge building out there, and the best way to do that in today's world is to have it filmed, put on like some type of platform.
Do you think content is one of the main? I'm not sure if content is one of the main things that they're necessarily driving for. They're certainly making content, but I do think, and I do get where
Well,
you're
it's to
coming
get people
from.
involved and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But I think if more of that's out there, they're just going to reach more people. And there's people out there that would want to be involved in that have no idea that us exist or that Brave Angels exist or that Bridge exists. Bridge existed for 2 years before I ever found out about them. And I was involved in other parts of the sphere. And I had never heard of Bridge USA.
And that's totally fair. And I think you do.
And they were like new at that time, so it made sense. But I think the more like social media reach you're going to have, like just the faster you're going to grow.
And that is possible. And I do think there is certainly is a point. Like, I'm not saying that nobody should be doing any social media stuff.
But I think that's like because like in places, you know, in certain parts of the world where if a protest happening and they don't like, what if it's the first thing they do? Like if it's a more authoritarian government,
They shut it down.
they don't
let
even
you
really
film
need
it.
they don't even really need to shut it down. It just doesn't go up on social media.
Yeah,
they just shut that down. And
Oh yeah, that's what I meant. They shut down the filming of it.
yeah,
Like, they don't let
it's effectively like ghosted. It's like it didn't happen. Like it's memory hold.
Sure, that is so from that perspective, yes, in the sense that like people would need to see it. So from the, sure, I get where you're coming from.
It's not that you shouldn't do in-person events, but like you need to do in-person events coupled with filming it.
Sure.
It doesn't need to be professional. It just needs to be out there to show people that you're doing something.
Yeah, I think that's sure. I guess that's fair.
I don't think pictures are enough anymore. Is the thing. Like, it's just everything's
sure
more real if it's filmed.
Yeah, I guess I was just talking about the fact that like I think especially with Gen Z, there's a lot of performative activism.
Yeah, that's
Social
definitely
media.
true.
Like, there's a lot of people that just think that posting the like all eyes on Rafa graphic on their story, which again, like I'm not saying don't care about it. Like you should care about it. Like it's a tragedy. Like it does need international attention, undoubtedly. But that graphic looked like a new TV show.
Yeah.
Kind of. It was like I don't know exactly. And I feel like the people that were posting it, because social media is so built on echo chambers, is like, are you even reaching people that don't already know about this anyway?
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know if you're reaching anybody new by posting that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's why like you need more like diversified content.
Yeah.
For that, like it would be like hard to do, but this is why like you need like fun content mixed in with your serious content and stuff to reach like a greater audience. Because like social media does put people into echo chambers.
How do you honestly like? What would you? Not that I mean, maybe you have an idea. I just like I've been thinking about this. Like, how do you reasonably fix social media to be more nuanced and to be less, not even less partisan, just less toxic, while also not, because at the end of the day, it's a business, right? At the end of the day, social media it is no longer really the public square. It's more of a business.
Yeah, I think a big problem with the fact that's like why that's a problem with social media, it shouldn't really matter that it's like that, but it does because the actual mainstream news sites don't have legitimacy with the majority of the population anymore.
No, not anymore.
So in the past, like you would see stuff on social media and like maybe it was really like just trying to get people riled up based on fear, XYZ, you know, heavily confirmation bias, things like that.
Yes.
You know, even people who were enjoying that content would remember like, okay, this is not legitimate news or anything like that.
Yes, like it's just meant to.
But people don't trust the thing that's supposed to be legitimate news anymore, and in a lot of ways, rightfully so. Right?
Yes, in many ways, very rightfully so. They shouldn't, but also, and that's an interesting thing. Like you talk about, and you're right. Like, and I think a lot of people don't trust the corporate media for good reason. But at the same time, there's plenty of untrustworthy people on social media.
No,
too,
exactly.
Like, there's plenty of that. So,
but
it's
there's
not
like
social
there's
media
not this like understood divide anymore, where like 15 years ago, people understood like, okay, there's stuff online and there's people I agree with, there's pundits, and then there's the news.
Yes.
That line is gone because the
Gone.
news became pundits.
Yes,
right?
exactly. And then the news people, and I think Fox is especially guilty of this, and it's really not
Fox
good.
is like the Rupert Murdoch, what kind of like was the innovative platform behind this. It
Yes.
seems like, and then, but everyone else did it, right?
Yes.
So that's Fox was just kind of they kind of came up with this formula, and then everyone else kind of was like,
Right,
oh, that's
and
profitable.
They're particularly bad about like their news people will like they'll like crack some joke. They'll
Yeah.
like do a bit, and then they'll be like, "Oh, but don't listen to me, and I'm no comedian." And it's like, well, then stop trying to be a comedian. I feel like there does to a certain
Yeah.
extent. Like if you take that job, you do have to have like, for example, like I do bits, like I do
Yeah.
Trump impression, like I do funny stuff. I'm also not advertising myself as a comedian or as a news head. Like
Yeah.
if you're gonna pick one of those things, I think to a certain extent you have to cut out that other aspect. Like if you're gonna go comedian, you can poke fun at cultural things. You can maybe
Yeah.
get people to think about.
Well, you
stuff.
can't be like specific. Like that's a problem. That's people who are trying to do the comedy while also being one way or the other politically. Like
can't do it.
Like someone like Tim Dillon can do it because he's not one way or the other politically.
No.
He's just making fun of everyone. Him and like Ryan Long, it's the same thing.
And
But-
he's kind of conservative, but he makes fun
Yeah,
of the Republicans
exactly, yeah.
more than he makes fun of the Democrats. Like he will actually, and I just think that you can't like there has to be some sort of line there. You can't blur the two because then people get lost in that.
Yeah.
People don't know which one is which, and then now you have people that like love Greg Gutfeld, and it's like he's kind of more of a shit comedian than he is like an actual news pundit, right?
Yeah.
Like he's not.
Yeah, and I mean like with like the news and stuff too. It's not to say like you can't have like a biased news source.
Yeah, it's
Like-
totally fine to have
Like NPR is biased, but it's real news.
right.
Yeah, so like it's possible, and like then ideally you would just watch a couple of them.
Yeah, and
And,
I think if all of these news sources just admitted to their bias, and
Yeah,
said,
and I
"This
think
is
they
exactly
do now.
What we're trying to do.
I think they really do admit to their bias now, but the problem on top of that is that they're all for profit,
yes,
whereas like NPR is like not for profit.
Mm-hmm.
So people will say NPR is boring. It's like, why is that? Like because they don't have this incentive to hook you with all these existential things.
and by the way, the news should be boring to an extent. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it should not be entirely based on stoking fear and division and I was talking about this on social media. Like I was been thinking about this. Like when you're if you're an activist on social media, the incentive structure is to dial the emotions up to 11, dial things up to 11, because then it gets more of a reaction. It gets more reposts, more shares, more comments.
Yeah, no, there's definitely a feedback loop with it.
It's a
If your
feedback
content makes people go write angry stuff in the comments and have other people argue with them, you'll get pushed farther
You get
because
pushed
people are
farther, yes.
interacting with your content.
And it's like, that's not activism. That's not what that is. You're not an activist. You're not a political pundit. You're just someone that is like enriching yourself on the backs of like dividing people and like playing
Yeah.
into their worst fears. It's like it's like a horrible thing to do. It's like so bad.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people. It's an entire industry now.
Yeah,
of
it's a
people
huge
doing that.
industry,
It's
like-
massive. And those people are like taking Raid Shadow Legends sponsorships on the side. Like, like what in the world? Like some of these sponsorships. Have you seen this company Freedom Water?
I have not seen.
Have you seen Freedom? It's like anti-woke bottled water. It's like genuinely the whole marketing thing. And I know a couple people that they sponsor, and it's like, is this seriously what's going to happen? Are we seriously just going to politicize every single aspect of this economy until like
Yeah, well,
you walk in the store and you buy a bottled water and I can all of a sudden like label
well, I
you
mean,
as
it's
some kind of...
already kind of like that. I mean,
It is.
It's the commodification of like political identity.
Yes. It's insane. Like the whole Bud Light thing that happened, the Target stuff. Like, are you shopping at Target still? Are you buying Bud Light?
Well, what I thought
Are
was
you buying Starbucks?
so funny about the Bud Light thing was that after that, like Modelo became the number one selling beer, and I'm pretty sure Anheuser-Busch, which is Bud Light, owns the distribution of Modelo in the United States. So
Right. So they're still getting your money anyway, right? Like,
yeah,
and then you know, of course, they funneled the money into the pockets of Kid Rock and Dana White, because then about a couple months later, Kid Rock was like, "No, listen, I got mad at him, but at this point, I think that the punishment doesn't fit the crime. And it's like a
Yeah,
crime? They didn't do anything illegal.
That was also so weird because Bud Light had done like Pride Month LGBT stuff before that. It's just like this one thing got blown up and became something.
Yes, because Dylan Mulvaney was having a moment. That was Dylan Mulvaney. Dylan, and what is she? What is she even up to anymore?
I'm not
she
sure.
Kind of fell off the face of the earth. Yeah, but she had her moment, and people got mad. And then, by the way, and I looked at the stock prices for all of these companies. By the way, if you look at them over like a 5 or 10 year period, those little controversies are like this.
Yeah,
They're just a blip. Like Bud Light went right back up after that. Starbucks might still be taking it. And these they undoubtedly take a hit. But at the end of the day,
well, I think Starbucks is quite a big one recently because
Starbucks is a big.
They never made any money in like recent years off selling coffee. They're a bank. So there's a bank like attached to them in terms of like their business model.
Really?
Yeah, but people did.
You can have a bank account with Starbucks?
It's not called that. I don't know exactly what it's called, but I know that's how they make the majority of their money. And then the coffee business is really just like, I don't really know why if it's not profitable, I don't really understand why they keep it, but it might be, they might own some of their locations, so it might be a real estate business.
That's what McDonald's is, right? McDonald's is just a real estate business.
Yeah,
it used to be at least in the start.
Generally, I think McDonald's generally owns their locations.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just, the
franchisees might own them, but there's also a lot of corporate owned ones.
I think in the start,
but I know with Starbucks, a lot of people that found that out that wanted to boycott them stopped using them as bank. Mike, do you know anything about this?
About the boycott?
Yeah, for Starbucks.
The Starbucks, they have a bank. They have a bank? I didn't even know this.
I'm scrolling through an article about
yeah.
bank, but yeah, they're like super anti-union.
Yes, they've always been that. So the left is kind of always not like Starbucks because they're a corporation, they're anti-union. And
I don't think that.
everything.
I mean, like I don't know. Maybe I think that's like stuff that's like recently come to light. For sure.
Yeah, I mean, I've always kind of heard just a general
Starbucks
sentiment.
Definitely started out as like a hipster coffee shop.
It did, which is very interesting. Like it was originally kind of for, or it was at least attracting maybe more of like a left-leaning personality. But now they're boycotting it because. Now what is this? We have data.
Yeah. Starbucks holds more cash than many banks.
Well, the banks are. I mean, are the banks even? But anyway, so yeah, and people don't like. So Starbucks is taking a big hit now because
this is really interesting. This is an interesting business model.
Can you send me that? Can I somehow get that right there, and maybe we'll screenshot that and we'll put it in post to show people. I did not know that they had a bank attached to them, but either way, so the left is always kind of like.
Do you want to read that and then like get a summary for us and just come back and say something?
Sure, yeah, you don't have to, but you could if you want to. I can
because I'm having trouble understanding just on a like how that because apparently they don't have to have interest or something.
That's very interesting. But either way, so the left has kind of always had this like weird relationship with Starbucks, but now they're doing this heavy boycott. And now, of course, the culture war being what it is, right? The conservative. I have now conservative friends that are like, no, I'm buying more Starbucks now.
Yeah.
And it's like, what the fuck is going on? Like, did you guys not?
I haven't seen that as much, but I mean, yeah.
It was a moment, right when it first happened. They were like buying extra Starbucks to cancel the boycott. I'm like, oh my god, guys! Like, they're a corporation. They hate your guts too. Like, they also don't like you that much. So.
Yeah. Yeah, and like Starbucks like definitely screwed up because they didn't really need to say anything. They just kind of counter signaled what their union said when they could have just said, hey, like this is the union's position. We're not taking positions on this. We're a corporation. We don't take political positions, XYZ.
Right.
But they did the opposite. They're like, no, we actually take the other position. Like which they did not need to do. Like why?
Yeah, I mean I wrote about this. Like corporations do not I don't know why anybody cares what political stance a corporation takes. At the end of the day, they're going to do what makes the profit margins big. Right?
Yeah,
like
and I mean, a lot of that has to do with like appealing to certain investors, I'm sure, and like
that's a good point, right? That's a good point. So maybe I didn't thought about it.
Because a lot of them they do care. Like the big investors, they care more about appealing to them than they do to the average consumer. For sure. Which is why people are like, I don't understand why this business does X, Y, Z when the consumers are mad about it. Like there's like a a scale. Like,
Yes.
what is hurting them more? Like, are they attracting these investors and losing these consumers? And like over time, will those consumers just come back anyway?
People will go back to Starbucks.
People go back
For
to
sure.
everything. Yeah.
They go back to everything. They'll go back.
Yeah, I
We're going to
remember
go back to the Middle East in 5 years. We talked about
Yeah,
this.
people were burning Nikes like 5 years ago. Like,
Right. And now we're right back with Nike. Like I said, there's a very short attention span, it seems like. And maybe this is not necessarily like something that's exclusive to America or to Western culture, but it does seem like right now in this country, we have a very short attention span. People like being angry. They just want something to kind of rail against in the moment, but then 6 months later, they'll go right back to that product.
mm-hmm.
They'll go right back to Nike shoes, Starbucks coffee. They'll be back to shopping at Target. Target will do sort of like Wounded Warrior Project. They'll be right back. Conservatives go right back to them.
Yeah, it's like anything that takes discipline too, you know?
Yes.
Like, I'm not going to consume sugar. Maybe I'll do that for 6 months, but then I'll have a soda, right?
Right. Exactly. And you'll go back to that because that's just, yeah, I mean, it's just interesting. If you have a consumerist culture, that's kind of what happens, right?
Yeah.
People just kind of keep going back to stuff. It's very strange. But, you know, and so that's just, I wrote a Substack about that. Like, all of this does, by the way, is just keeps people in the mindset that this is what we're gonna do. Like, we're just gonna get mad at the thing every 6 months. It's gonna cause people to hate each other more, or, you know, lose friendships over this stuff. And at the end of the day, Starbucks could have just kept their mouth shut. They could have just, like you said, they could have just said, hey, this is the position the union's taking.
Yeah.
We're not taking a stance.
Well,
they did
like,
kind of do
what you're
that.
talking about, like, people like to be mad and stuff. Like,
People right now like to be angry.
Recently, like, I had an experience, was at a party with a friend, and he works for a conservative environmentalist group.
Okay. Is it the ACC?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And he was telling someone else about that, and they were not happy that existed. They were actually mad. Like, they didn't say that, but you could tell by their reaction. And it's because, you know, people would rather have, like, the people that they perceive as they're going against be
Yes.
a caricature rather than
Yes.
something a little more nuanced and complicated.
Yes, people don't like Benji Baker or
Yeah.
Backer. I forget. Last time I apologize. I like him. He's cool. Like, people are deeply, and it's interesting. Like, I've noticed this. People now are deeply uncomfortable with the idea that you can be nuanced and, like, that you don't have to fight.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know where that comes from, but it's like people.
Yeah, I think everyone, you know, everyone has some type of, like, in-group preference innately
Yes.
that you can kind of condition yourself out of, but
Yes.
people seem to have replaced it in a lot of ways with politics. Some
They
people replace it with other things like religion, but
And to be clear, like, I don't think it's necessarily wrong to have an in-group.
Mhm.
But as soon as that turns into, and listen, if it's something harmless, right? If you root for a sports team and you
Yeah.
want to hate on another sports fan base, that's totally, like, I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that.
no, that's something everyone understands.
Yes.
Because it's like what people don't have necessarily a problem with disagreements, even though they think they do. They have a
Yes.
problem with not understanding how someone could have that position, right?
Yes.
But for something like sports, it's very easy to understand. It's like maybe they're from that city, maybe they're from
Yes.
that state, maybe that someone they went to high school plays for that team.
Yes.
Maybe they just like the colors. Like,
Right, literally, maybe they like the coach. Maybe they are just following a player, right?
Yeah.
Because I have some friends and family members that go, "Oh, I like a couple of these players. They moved to this one team. I'm maybe going to root for them this year."
yeah.
You know what I mean? It's
So
like
it's very easy to follow that logically, but it's harder for people to do that with politics.
very, very tough because people want because despite
But they might
the fact,
have they could have the opposite belief for the exact same reasons that you have the opposite to them, right?
Yes.
It just comes down like a different avenue.
yeah, it's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. At the end of the day, I've found that the majority of people out there that you meet are good people. They want safer streets. They want better education for their kids. They want a cleaner environment, that kind of stuff. They disagree on how we get there. And the interesting thing is people seem to have a decent understanding of why somebody would root for another team, even if they don't like it.
Mhm.
And that's very simple. And as it turns out, with politics, this is gonna sound maybe a bit strange, but I feel like it's also simple for politics. It's complicated in a different way.
Yeah.
But to a certain extent, like what Monica Guzman says, like people are puzzles. Everything's not necessarily going to make sense about a person. And that's okay, because you're not going to find any person out there that fully makes sense, where everything fully lines up. I feel like everyone's got their quirks. Like everyone's got that thing that doesn't really make sense. That's okay. It's fine. It's not hard.
Yeah.
It's harder to operate like that. It's not like lazy thinking is easy. It's easy to think that all the conservatives don't care about the environment until you run into the ACC. And then you have to grapple with the fact that there are some conservatives that do just take a slightly different approach to dealing with the climate change problem. They might not like the climate orthodoxy, but they still believe it's a problem that has to be solved.
They're more about like just like traditional, I guess I would say, pollution, like plastic in the oceans, things like that, just trash on the side of the road. So like,
perfect. I like that there's an organization that's also tackling that stuff.
Yeah.
Like clean up the oceans, clean up the landfills. Like we also need people focusing on that.
yeah, because that's something that does get like heavily ignored.
Yes.
Because like of the focus on climate change.
Yeah, because all the focus on like the carbon taxes and stuff, and how do you deal with.
Yeah, because like that has things that it seems like it's directly affecting you right now, but it's like so does plastic in your water supply.
Yes, so do microplastics in everything we consume. That's also a problem. But people, and it's weird. Like just people seem uncomfortable with the fact, and also they seem kind of unaware of the fact that it's like people are going to have a different moral framework than you. And just we were talking about this like with the with some of those like rallies that I went to at Pitt, is like I don't even necessarily disagree with this, guys, but it's the way we're doing it. It's the way you're doing it. It's the way you act like nobody could ever disagree with this. It's like obviously somebody out there is going to disagree with you. Somebody's going to have a different moral framework. It's called living in a liberal democracy. Like it's called living in a free society. You're not going to have everyone feeling the same way as you. Like it's not going to happen.
Yeah, no, exactly.
They're very uncomfortable with that. Along the same lines, we were talking about. It was kind of funny yesterday. We were talking about this. How you were like, yeah, they just made the leftists made all the rallies cringe. Like so did the right. Everyone just made the rallies cringe. Like all the social movements now have. So is cringe the only thing that matters?
Cringe is definitely at like the tippy top of the pyramid of things that will lose you supporters for sure.
I think it's kind of true because, and like I was saying, it to me it seemed like the left kind of owned the corner on cringe in that way that you would show up to one of those rallies and for one social cause that should be talked about, that should be discussed, that should have attention, undoubtedly. But it's like now we've tied in 8 other things, right? Like people will literally show up with a cart. Mm-hmm. I saw somebody show up with a cart, like you take your kid through like a water park in like a cart, and it just had signs. And I looked through all the signs, and it was every single social justice cause that has ever happened in the last 80 years. It was like gay rights, trans rights, climate change, feminism, police brutality, whatever. And it's like, can we focus on one thing for a moment? Because that's another thing that loses support.
Yeah, well, it feels like piggybacking too, and people have always done that to try to get they'll go to something that's a popular like protest or something, and they want to get what's more important to them out there. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, like I get why people do that. It just kind of feels pretty disrespectful to the protest organizers if it's about one thing.
That is also a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's really hard to organize something like that.
It's very difficult. So. And then you end up distracting from the real cause. And as I've always said, people are really good at making the causes that they support look really bad. Like they're really good at kind of undermining the stuff that they're supporting with their own behavior because people get real excited about stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it might turn off people who think they have to check all of those boxes to be there.
Yes, and by the way, I was going to say, the right is right there with them. They're right up on the list because I don't know why, but there's just some group of conservatives out there that's like, Trump's a good dad. He's a good businessman. It's like, guys, does anyone think that Trump is like an active father? Like, I just can't see it. I can't see.
Well, none of them we don't, and none of those guys probably know him personally.
No,
so it's
like you don't. People act like they deeply know him. Like there is like that hardcore Trump base. They act like he's their friend that they see at dinner every week. They're like, Trump wouldn't do that. It's like, you don't know him. Like,
Yeah.
You don't know what he's gonna do. And so they're
And that happens with a lot of people. I mean, when like the Bill Cosby stuff happened, like a lot of people did not want to believe that.
Yeah,
You know?
Michael Jackson stuff. People don't want to believe that either.
Kevin Spacey, like
right,
you know.
right. It is so funny that Kevin Spacey's back and Tim Dillon's been saying it for like 5 years. Like he's coming back.
What
ready or
podcast?
not.
He went on Lex's podcast.
He did Lex Friedman.
Okay.
Well,
then like wasn't Tim Dillon like we can't have him now?
yeah. He was like, damn it, we wanted Spacey. I'm gonna do the fifth person that has him on or whatever. It's really
It's not worth it. It's not worth it. It's the fifth person. Like
right, but yeah, I don't know. It's just like everyone's. And listen, and maybe for any older folks listening to the show that don't really understand the concept of cringe, it's just like everyone is just they're getting too excited.
they have a different. If you're from like a different generation than us, they're gonna have a different standard for cringe.
This is a good point. I guess it's just maybe the Gen Z position of it, but it's like people are getting too excited about showing up with. They're getting a little bit too excited about fighting. And listen, I understand wanting to fight injustice in the world. I really do, but it's like. If you decide to fight everything at once, people are going to get exhausted. Like you can't, I'm sorry, you can't live like a full life and take care of yourself and also care about every single problem that's ever happening.
Yeah.
It's why I just focus on
it just ends up being like inefficient.
Yes, it's why I am not polarization is my problem. That's the one that I've chosen to fight. I'm not all of a sudden like Jeremiah Cutright is an environmentalist. Like he was with Bridge USA for a little bit, but now he's stepping away from Bridge USA to try to go work for the energy department in DC because climate change is his thing. Like I kind of feel like at the end of the day, if you want to be efficient with your time and energy, you have to pick one thing and attack it on all fronts. Like if that's what you want to do. Like, and by the way, not everybody has to do that.
Yeah.
You don't have to. But if you decide to fight all of it at once, I feel like that's got to be horrible for your mental health. It's exhausting for you and other people, and it's not efficient with your energy. Like, it's not.
Yeah, I mean, it depends if you're getting paid for it or not, right? Like,
sure, if you're getting paid and
that's
if
your
that's
job,
your
like,
job,
it's totally understandable.
Of course. If it's your job to tackle multiple problems, then hey,
Yeah.
that's your thing. But if it's like a volunteer thing or like a side project of yours, I've found that it's much more efficient to just, I've gotten so much farther than I thought I was going to get in the bridging space, just in terms of like meeting people and networking and being able to do cool stuff, because it's like, now if I would have also chosen to fight 6 other problems, I probably would not be doing this right now.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. So what initially got you into the bridging stuff?
I think it was just, I think I've told this story briefly on the show a couple of times, but I think it was just kind of like, what's interesting is that a lot of bridge builders, and I think we talked about this last time, but I kind of forget what your story was too.
Yeah, I can go over it again.
Of course, yeah. I mean, I get that you're not really supposed to do that on podcasts, but if people didn't listen to the first episode, which they should, but even then we'll do it again.
That'll be a great clip. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, of course. I mean, I think for me, what's interesting is a lot of bridge builders have a moment, and I think just going over a couple of friends. Yeah, I won't go into anybody's personal stories because it's theirs to tell. But for some people, it was like a certain argument they had with a family member or a certain fight they had, and they thought like, hey, there's got to be a better way to do this, or we can't. There's got to be a healthier way. I can't keep doing this whole fighting thing forever. There's a lot of bridge builders that have like a certain like the Bridge USA guys like Ross and Manu, right? Like they had the Milo Yiannopoulos protest at Berkeley.
Yeah.
That was the catalyst to start Bridge USA. I don't necessarily have one story like that. I think it was kind of a slow burn over the summer of 2020 where I was getting into arguments with my dad about some stuff. Nothing like crazy, but it was like getting into these heated arguments where we weren't really getting anywhere in terms of like finding common ground or like understanding each other better. And that was happening with my peers at school and friends and family members. And I think over time I just slowly started to realize that all the social media stuff wasn't helpful, that all of the, that there was a lack of nuance in all of this, and that there kind of had to be a better way to do it. And then I found the Forward Party, which I was with them for, right about 6 months, kind of heavy. And then I found Bridge USA through the Forward Party, and then I stepped away from the Forward Party, went kind of all in with Bridge USA and Bravery Angels. But yeah, it was kind of a slow burn. I just kind of realized that, and I still believe that we cannot keep doing this forever. Like it will, and people kind of joke this and that about like, oh, are we closer to a civil war? Like we're more divided than we've ever been. But like truly, it's like this will devolve into something much more serious if it continues to go on forever. And the way that the system is set up now, especially with social media, it seems like there is no incentive structure to stop.
Yeah.
And what about you? Just to give the people a little bit of a background and for me, just a refresher.
Yeah. So when I was in college, one of my majors was poli-sci. So I got involved with a couple of groups, and I ended up getting kind of high-ish up in them. Mm-hmm. And over time, I kind of saw it as like a lot of what was going on is they were kind of getting people ideologically committed. Because I got involved with this specific one for like free speech stuff, and they were getting people like ideologically committed to something and then kind of farming them for labor. That was something I saw that was very toxic. It ruined a lot of people's lives that I saw personally. And then on top of that, I was studying one of my other majors was post-Soviet studies. Mm-hmm. So I was researching a lot about like the collapse of the Soviet Union, because that's something that's always very much interested me, because that's something that happened like
not that long ago.
Not that long ago, and on the like a historical timeline, it happened overnight. Not actually, but it seemed like that. It was very
quick.
And we don't really know in the U.S. We're not like very much taught about it. We're like taught about it as like
not at all,
as if it's like a good thing, if anything. Yeah. And we're not taught about like why it happened. We're given like very brief like like the system couldn't maintain itself. But when you're actually studying and looking into it, things in that society just started to break down. Like people became very alienated from each other, and like things that worked for like decades just stopped working. Like they had a really high amount of like plane crashes, like of commercial airliners, stuff like that. Society just became very divided, and there's a lot of like very clear parallels between that and America in the last 5 years. Mm-hmm. And people in 1990 were saying like, well, the Soviet Union's not going to collapse.
Right.
Everyone was saying that. The very few people, like other than people who thought it was going to collapse for what I would say are the wrong hypothesis.
Sure.
Everyone else was like, no, it's going to like have a rough patch, but they're like going to get through it, whatever. I mean, no one thinks America is gonna like fall apart and collapse, because that could happen tomorrow.
Right. It could happen at this point. It could happen very.
Because the Soviet Union didn't, there was a coup and stuff with attempted coup, but there wasn't a straight up civil war throughout the entire country. It just overnight they were like, oh yeah, by the way, tomorrow Soviet Union's gone. Like
it's just gonna collapse. Yeah.
And that is like I would say was one of the worst things to happen in the latter half of the last century, because of the amount of civil wars down the road it caused, the amount of wars down the road caused, the amount of like just crime and starvation, and
because they had funded a lot of proxy stuff like during the Cold War, and they had spread a lot, and then if that all collapsed,
well, there was just so much stuff that while it was together, like internal conflicts that didn't happen, and like it caused like a civil war in Georgia and Tajikistan and Moldova, and these are things we're just like not taught about here and stuff. So that's like the fallout of it afterward, but that didn't happen while it was collapsing for the most part, with the exception of like Armenia and Azerbaijan. But that could happen like in the U.S., right? Like you could have like the U.S. collapse, and all of a sudden there's a civil war in California, like. And I think people have this romantic idea too that if there's like a civil war, it's going to be like some ideological, like Republicans versus Democrats. It's like would probably look more like the Spanish Civil War, where there's just like a whole mess of sides and people are betraying each other all the time. And
there will be militias.
It ends up being more based off of like power and interest rather than like actual ideology. So that's something that really motivated me too. I saw, after studying all that, I saw the parallels between the late Soviet Union and contemporary America. So that was very troubling. And then also I have like a lot of people in my family that are very into politics, and learned that a few of them had, cut each other off. Like
that happened with me.
Yeah, just because of a political difference, and it's like this is insane. Like
it's so sad. I mean that stuff breaks my heart when I hear about it. It's like, first of all, it's just crazy, but also it's like, really, we're gonna we're gonna let like this is gonna be the thing to tear us apart of all the things.
Yeah,
like,
and it
this
was
is
like
gonna
a
be
part of my family that I associate very heavily with like having like very strong family like connections and values, and they were like cutting each other off because of some disagreement. You know, and I was like, come on, like,
Yeah.
you guys aren't even gonna believe the same thing in 10, 20 years. So, like, let's go. Like,
right, exactly. Like people's ideas change too. And so when did you actually start Unite America movement?
So it was like kind of a very slow startup, getting like everything together, A/B testing everything. I think I started doing stuff for it in 2020, but really actually making videos and stuff was 2022.
Okay.
I think now is going to be the time we have everything together where we're going to start doing it a little more professionally.
Gotcha.
We have the studio. We're going to get that together.
So we met not long after you had started
Yeah, not long
making
after.
videos.
Yeah, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, and just and we'll put like social media stuff in the link.
Yeah,
in
in the bio.
in the bio and everything. As people can go check it out. Yeah. How long have we even done here? What are we at? Oh, we're just at an hour and 6. Okay, we can go for a little.
we
We
can
can go
keep
for a
going.
little more. Sure.
Talk about Assange.
Oh my gosh, I did not even. We talked about this very briefly in the car. I did a bad media consumer moment where I just kind of looked at headlines and I didn't read the article. So we just sort of briefly talk about it, and I don't have my phone on me. I wish I would have done. I should have done research on this before this. I didn't think we were going to bring this up, but it appears to me that Julian Assange he's signed a plea deal. He has returned. I don't know if he's yet returned, but he is going to be returning to the country, or he's already back here. And I wish him well. I don't know what's in the cards for him. As we were talking about, there's a lot of people that probably want him dead. Like a lot of groups in this country that probably don't like him being around based on what he did.
Yeah, I think the average person doesn't
Really,
remember.
yeah.
Or if they do, it's because they really like him. You know, I think
Right.
there's probably people in the intelligence agency that really want him dead.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Like the intelligence agencies don't like him. The military contracting companies probably don't like him too much.
Because I don't think he was releasing stuff just on the government. I think there was corporations
Yes.
and stuff. So I'm sure there's a lot of enemies he has. So I'm wondering what the plea deal is going to be. Like, what is he pleading? He's pleading guilty. But
Yeah, could you briefly look it up, just quickly, so we could see kind of like what he signed? Because I know the Biden administration handed something. He was living in like an embassy. I forget.
Yeah,
exactly
he was living in
where.
the embassy of Ecuador in London for I think a decade, like 10 years almost exactly.
Did he just have like a hotel room in there? Did they just have like a?
I think they just gave him asylum, so they probably have just some rooms for ambassadors and stuff, and they let him stay in one. I'm sure. I don't really know why they specifically did. They probably said it like a human rights thing,
Sure.
but
And then yeah, because
Officially pleading guilty to conspiring unlawfully to obtain and disseminate classified information over his alleged role in one of the largest breaches of classified material in U.S. military history.
I don't know if he picked up any of that, but so he's pled guilty. I wonder if do you think that he after a while just got tired of not having a McGriddle? Do you think that eventually he was like, fuck, man, this stuffed crust pizza looks really good and I'm sick and tired of not having it?
yeah, he's been in jail in the UK, right, for the last few years.
I believe that's the case. So he signed a plea saying that admitting guilty to the largest, what is that, intelligence breach? Is that what they said? Like it's like the largest intelligence breach in the history. Is it in the history of the
US
country?
military intelligence.
Yeah. Because he leaked a bunch of documents surrounding stuff with the war in Iraq, from what I understand, stuff over in the Middle East. And so conspiring to illegally obtain, and I don't even know, what was it? This is so bad. I don't even know anything about the guy. What was he before? What was he? Was he an intelligence? Was he
I'm
an
not sure.
intelligence? Or was he just a guy because he was the WikiLeaks guy.
Yeah.
Wow. I wish him well. I hope that he's enjoying. I hope that he is enjoying everything that we now have that he has since missed. Will he be on Rogan? Do you think? Do you think he'll do a
Well,
podcast
I'm
tour?
kind of assuming he's going to be
I feel like Lex Friedman's like already DMing him. Like
I'm
trying to get him
assuming,
in.
given like what he did, there's going to be like stipulations to like how
what
he's
he
able
can-
to live.
Sure.
He
Oh,
might
okay,
be under
interesting.
permanent house arrest with no computers, something like that. I don't know.
Interesting.
But he might be able to live in like a comfortable scenario because I don't think he was put in like a cushy prison in the UK. I think he was just thrown in with general population, but I'm not sure.
Wow, that's interesting. I wonder if Snowden would ever sign something like that. I think because he's
well-
chilling out in somewhere in the middle of nowhere, Russia.
Yeah.
He's
So
out there chilling somewhere.
he doesn't really, I guess, have an incentive to.
I guess not, right? What incentive did Assange have other than McGriddle?
Well, he was in prison. It's probably because he
Right.
didn't want to be in prison.
Right.
you know?
Wow. Well, he's back. I wonder what will happen to him. Someone's placed a bet on like how long he's gonna live for sure. Like there's some guy out there that's like, I give him 3 months
Yeah.
before somebody takes him out.
I don't know. Let's see.
Wow. Is there anything else happening in the world that we have not addressed? We've tackled every issue. We've solved every world problem on this podcast. That's why somebody should buy this thing. We've solved many a problem. I don't think there's anything really else that's happening. I think we're probably going to wrap here. I'm excited for this. I'm not excited for this debate, but I'm looking forward to watching this debate. I wonder if, is somebody going to fall asleep? Is Biden going to is somebody going to croak?
We could talk about maybe like some potential like solutions we have for some of this stuff.
For the debate?
Not for the debate, just for like the polarization stuff and things like that.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, I've talked about some of that stuff on the show here, but
Yeah. So what would you say is like your solution for in terms of like the media?
I think that Vivek Ramaswamy had an interesting point. He did Andrew Schultz's podcast, and this is just one step of many to a solution. But I think that if the corporate media wants to regain the trust of the American people, they have to admit to lying.
Mm-hmm.
They have to tell us that they lied, what they lied about, and why they lied about it. That was kind of Vivek's point. Like the why is very important. Like they have to. And you said recently, I think you are correct that they are maybe starting to notice that they're not making as much money. They are maybe starting to admit to their biases a little bit. I would say that.
Well, I think they've been admitting to biases since like the 2016 election.
You think so?
Yeah, they used to say. Who was it?
Doesn't
Was
C-
CNN? Was CNN?
Doesn't CNN say like we're the truth or whatever? Like we've got the truth or
I
whatever.
think they got rid of that slogan. There was
Did they?
one of them had fair and balanced. That might have been Fox.
That
News.
was Fox.
They got rid of that.
Funniest.
So they don't say that anymore.
Good,
I
they
don't
should
think
not.
they're like. I don't think the slogan that CNN had they use that anymore.
I don't even know if MSNBC has a slogan.
I think I don't know, but they never like really had a slogan that like said they were like neutral or whatever.
Yeah, but I think that to fix the media, you have to do that. I think they have to anyone that hasn't yet fully admitted to their bias, you have to admit to your bias. You have to be more transparent about that. You have to admit openly to all of the things that you lied about and why. I think that you have to admit to the American people that, Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, they have to come out and say, listen, we know that you don't trust us and that you're rightfully so. And we know that next time something happens, you're not going to trust us, but give us time and we're going to try to right this wrong. Mm-hmm. You have to get there's got to be something to be done about the money. I don't know if all these places need to become not for profit. I'm not trying to take away anybody's job or take away anybody's ability to make money, but I think, and obviously nonprofits can be exploited. That's obviously it's not an immediate fix, but I think that a lot of the money incentives have to change.
Yeah, I think if you want to be considered like an actual news outlet, not that you can't be doing like freelance news on a YouTube channel, whatever.
Sure.
I think to recreate the divide between like this is like pop news and this is like serious news and make it trustworthy. It's still going to be biased, But we have, sites like All Sides and Ground News that can kind of point that out.
Yes.
So I think that's
That's going to
looking at
become an industry. That is
yeah,
becoming
looking
an
at
industry.
that is very important as well, because I don't expect news outlets to not have biases. They
Of
always
course.
had biases, but
Of course.
it's really about, like, the first step is to get rid of that, like, existential nature of getting
Yes.
people whipped up and afraid,
Yes.
and, like, getting them caught, into this
And
feedback loop of that. And I think the best way to do that is to decommodify, like, the official media, like, make them all NPR, make them all nonprofits.
Yes. And now here's a question I have for you then. Do you think that the American people will accept that? It might take time, but my thing is this, like,
I don't.
to a certain extent, there is a part of our human nature that is being exploited.
Yeah, I think most people would be behind that.
Okay.
I think most people that aren't, it's for, like, you're gonna get, like, some libertarians that have a huge problem with that because you're using the government to, like, you know, go after a private corporation. But other than that, I've never really run into anyone that I propose this to, regardless of other political biases, that is against this idea.
Okay.
So they tend to be very, because, like, everyone's mad at, like, some faction of the media.
Mhm.
Like, if you have two people in a comment section arguing, like, Fox News sucks, CNN sucks, and another person comes in, they both suck. The two first people will like that comment. Like,
Right.
but they'll be like, the one I watch does suck, but it sucks less than the other guys, right? Like,
Right.
so I think everyone really agrees with it, and they can still go watch, the people they want on YouTube and stuff, but that will, like, reestablish this, like, hey, the people on YouTube are doing this for profit. The people in the actual, like, news apparatus, they're doing it as a non-for-profit. Like, they're getting paid their salary for sure, but they're not making. They can only make so much. Anything they make either just gets taxed away at the end if it's not reinvested into the company. And there's not this huge, like, audience capture incentive, because you could even, like, because then the audience doesn't matter, like,
Yeah.
especially if it's getting funded. Like, that's maybe one thing people will have a problem with, but other than that, it's still going to be around, right? And then if all the news outlets are like that, I don't think they'll have a problem getting viewership.
Yeah, I think that they could easily get their viewers back. I think. And so, what do you think needs to happen? Like,
I've heard an interesting, like, correlation to whereas when the news started to become hyper partisan like that, like, or
I think
it had to do with ad blockers. So
Really?
it had to do with people moving into looking at the news on the internet, and then the advent of ad blockers. So they were not getting revenue from ads anymore. So they had to move to the subscription model. And then the only people that were willing to pay for XYZ News were the
hyper partisan.
were the most extreme elements.
Yeah.
So they were like, then they started catering the news to that person, like, because that was their only audience at that point. Like, the average person wasn't anymore because they didn't want to pay for it, and they were using ad blockers.
I think that the FCC also at some point removed a couple of restrictions or a couple of guidelines surrounding. Cause in Tim Urban's book, What's Our Problem, he talks about this. I apologize, I don't remember the exact guidelines, but there were some guidelines that they removed that essentially opened the door for other news sources to, like, openly slander each other and openly make these, like, personal attacks, and to they just removed certain guidelines that essentially made it easier for that sort of hyper partisan, very emotional news to become profitable and to become a thing. And you have mentioned the ad blockers before, and that probably is. I mean, it might be something to do with that.
Yeah, there's a direct correlation with it, and like, that doesn't mean it caused it, but it's, like, very interesting to look at.
It is interesting. That is interesting to think about.
Because that's something that's caused just by then a change in technology as well.
Yeah. And and this is another thing, like, with fixing the news. Like, the one thing that the one co-founder of Braver Angels said, David Blankenhorn says, is that Braver Angels is not a fact adjudicating organization. It's a trust building institution.
Yeah.
And there is and that's kind of a tough thing. And I was talking to a friend about this. I was talking to Claire Ashcraft about this, and I was like, how do you? I think I might have, like, asked somebody this question before on the show, or at least I saw it somewhere. I couldn't remember where, but the one tough thing for bridge builders is figuring out, finding a balance between building trust and also fact checking whenever things are genuinely Like when someone says something that is objectively wrong, like if there is genuinely a fact out there, right?
Yeah.
Whenever you get into like debates about economies or ideology, some of that stuff gets a little bit fuzzier. But if you were, for example, talking about climate change, and if you were to like bring up a stat, like someone says it's wrong, it's like that's kind of a tough part that we have to figure out. Is and Claire actually made the argument that you cannot do both at the same time, that you kind of have to just go all in on one or the other, which is interesting. And I think people would be uncomfortable with that, but I think she might be right. Like it's kind of tough to build trust and to also reestablish
you have to
that.
build the trust first,
Right, you
and
have
then
to-
you can start be
yes.
like, hey, like I appreciate your views on XYZ. I think you made me think about ABC, but I think this one thing you said, I think that is wrong, and you might like want to look into why it is. Here's some of the stuff, and then that person's gonna be like, oh, like I don't want to be wrong. They can still have the same position, but they want to have
Sure.
good arguments. So-
Yes, and I think to a certain extent,
And you see
That's
that
it.
you see that with everyone. Like there's people I really like a lot of things they'll say, but then every once in a while I hear them say one thing that I'm like, okay, this is something that's not correct.
yeah, I just had it with a friend today on Instagram. He posted something, and I was like, I don't know if I necessarily agree with that.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of a tough. It's a tough thing to do. It does seem like whenever I look at kind of what's happened with politics over the last, I really became, and again, I'm not trying to be one of those Gen Z people whose political knowledge starts in 2016 with Donald Trump, right? Like I became politically conscious in like 2018. The Trump era of politics is kind of all that I know. I wasn't really paying attention when Obama was president. I wasn't obviously paying attention when Bush was president. Like that wasn't a thing that I was doing. But it does seem like over the last 6 or 7 years, what we've effectively done is just stripped away all sense of a shared reality that this country had. Like the shared foundations of reality are gone. And that's why you hear people saying like, oh, people can't even agree on a fact anymore.
Yeah.
So it seems like before you get to the fact checking, you might actually need to put up with a little bit of, and again, I don't, do you have to put up with a little bit of misinformation in the beginning and build the trust first and then deal with the misinformation later?
Yeah, because you can't like just come right out of the gates talking to someone like, "Oh, you're wrong."
Yeah, like it doesn't work.
Nobody
doesn't.
wants to be wrong,
No.
and nobody wants to be wrong around someone they're not comfortable with.
Yes,
If
that's a good
if
point.
you just met someone and they're not your friend, and you're just having, or you are friends but you've never talked about politics or social issues or anything like that before, they're not going to be comfortable with being wrong around you.
Mm-hmm.
And especially if you're in a group setting, they're not going to be comfortable with being pointed out that they're wrong.
Yeah,
Right? So it really just have to that just comes down to more of like interaction and social cues rather than like even like the stuff we've been talking about. But yeah, and I think that's like a good way to look at it.
Mhm.
But a lot of people are too focused on being correct and like dunking on
They
the
are.
people that are wrong.
And too focused on winning.
Yeah,
When
exactly.
you're not going to win. That's the one thing. That's my favorite quote from from Monica Guzman's book. Is she says that she's like, I'm a journalist. I'm supposed to be rah for information as the cure for everything, but I'm not. And she was like, I'm tired of throwing out links and throwing up our hands, raging at ranting to our people who get it while raging at the other people that don't. And then she said, I gave up on the idea of that if we could rid the world of misinformation, everything would be fine, as if mowing down the weeds would prevent new ones from sprouting. So at the end of the day, you can combat misinformation all you want, but I think if you don't address the fact that social trust has kind of fallen to the wayside, your fight against misinformation is going to be ultimately futile.
Yeah.
And that's my problem with media literacy courses. Like no one I think talks about this. The reason my media literacy courses seem shit is that we spend so much time talking about what is a trustworthy source, where to get trustworthy information. We don't talk about the fact, we don't really ask ourselves the question, okay, why do people not trust? Why are people going to news sources that are a bit wacky or untrustful? And it's because they have seen, rightly or wrongly, they have been given reasons to not trust these sources that we would have normally regarded as more factual or more trustworthy.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't have any conversation about that. And it seems like if you were going to do like a software update for media literacy courses, that's what I would do. Start adding a decent section of the course material talking about social trust and polarization and why. Do a little bit of like social psychology, like talk about moral frameworks for a little bit, like talk about that kind of stuff and get people at least to a common understanding of why people don't trust stuff.
Yeah, I know. The other day on Instagram, Manu was live with someone, and
with Will Roosh, I think.
yeah, Will Roosh, and
That was yesterday.
yeah,
Yeah.
And he was talking about, or they were both talking about how, the people that don't want to have a conversation, whatever, are like a vocal minority. And they were like kind of talking about like, oh, how do you deal with that? And I've always said it's like, well, the people that want to have the conversations have to become the vocal minority.
Yes.
And there's a lot of people that's just not in necessarily the type of people that are into conversations like that. That's just not necessarily in their temperament. Mm-hmm. So you have to kind of go out of your comfort zone to do that. Yeah. But all of this, like how that group became the vocal minority, if you want to call them that, is because they were willing to. Mm-hmm. Like all this stuff controlled by the people that are the willing. Yeah. So you have to be willing to go out and do X, Y, Z, have those conversations, make content, do that, make this cool, make this not cringe, right?
Right. You can't make it cringe. Do you think that the bridging movement overall does a pretty good job at that?
I think so. I've really never come into contact with everyone who's actually disagreeing in person. I've had like a couple people online comment. It's like, if we can just get like the commies and fascists to agree, we'll all be having a good time, and that's what y'all sound like. And then I just reply whenever I see that with yes and nail polish emoji. Like, but it's like obviously that's like a caricature of what people are trying to do, right?
Yeah, I think that.
Although I will host that discussion if people want to have that. But
sure, and also I think. And also this is a thing we didn't really talk about, but it is a big problem, is like the bots on social media. They've got to do something about the bots. If honestly, if the bridging movement wants to get anywhere, and it's kind of fucked up. It's like, I don't know if the social media companies want to remove the bots, but the bots have got to go.
By bots, do you mean like actual bots?
Yes, like actual, not like, I'm not
like NPCs.
No. I mean, NPCs surely exist, but I mean, just in the sense that like you have to get rid of this idea that Russia can boot up a troll farm and they can organize like a Proud Boys rally across from the BLM rally. It's like we cannot be letting foreign governments just fuck with us like this. Like it cannot be happening. Like right now we're not in a position to combat that. We're not in a position to do that.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the bots I think are just burner accounts though, by like individuals that want to like troll and start stuff outside of their main account.
Sure, and people are going to do that, but there is foreign influence going on. Like
there's people that are trying to do it. I think they're pretty good at catching that though, because if like 15 million likes are immediately generated, like YouTube catches that.
Sure,
and channels get banned.
But like Twitter's not good at catching it. They're all over Twitter.
I think. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I don't use Twitter enough to see that. But I know you do see a lot of people who are being bots. Like,
I for sure see bots on Instagram.
Okay, yeah, the Instagram I think has more.
There are some, and the bots are not helping at all. Like I'll see an account that says some wild stuff in the comment section or insults somebody or makes some just cheap ideological comment, and then you click on the account and it's like. They have no followers, but they follow like 1,000 people or whatever, and
I think there's those where you can like kind of easily determine that because there's like the honeypot bots as well too. That like
right, but if people don't know to look for it, if people just get caught up in the moment of being angry, like it's gonna cause a problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think there's a lot of people that act like bots as well. And that's
those are NPCs.
Yeah, like or just people who want to have like a good time trolling and like people.
How do you feel about that? Because listen, I'm a free speech guy for the most part. I'm not an absolutist. If you violate the law, if you dox somebody on social media, if you make a legitimate call to violence, you are going to be dealt with, and I think that you probably should be. So I'm not an absolutist, but. When it comes to like hate speech, my question is always like, okay, who's the arbiter of that? Where's the line? Are we going to be okay with that shifting, or how do we?
Is it consistent?
Is it consistent? How do we properly, as culture advances, do we eventually get to a point where something that used to be seen as hateful has evolved to something that's not, right?
Yeah, I mean, those are all. I think
it's tough
in general. Like the U.S. is. Comparatively to other places, such a stable country that we really don't have a good argument for censoring anyone.
Yeah.
In terms of like, you can because like somebody like saying stuff against the government XYZ or
Doesn't
it's
matter.
not gonna cause like this huge collapse of society.
No.
It's not collapse of like the actual like governmental like system.
No. There are so many people that hate the government already. If it was gonna happen, it would have.
Yeah.
Right.
And they don't like even necessarily hate the government. They just hate the current administration. Usually,
Sure.
they might hate like one aspect of how the government is structured for sure, but that's stuff they can also change usually.
Right. And so I'm not a free speech guy, and listen, comedy is, I think, a good thing. I think that there's a lot of people doing bad comedy. I think that good comedy comes from a complex understanding of the world.
Yeah.
But trolling is like, and again, I'm not trying to tell anyone they can't troll or that but I am saying that maybe they shouldn't. Like I put that was a note on my Substack. Like America is kind of an experiment in the idea that just because you can do something, it doesn't necessarily mean that you should do it.
Yeah.
Right? Like just because we have all these freedoms.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
I think it's a learning process too. Like relatively, like all of
If you want to tighten, you can tighten that.
no, I can just do it.
Okay, yeah.
The social media apparatus is still relatively new.
It is,
So
yeah.
people are like figuring out like okay, I just shouldn't listen to, like a lot of people say don't look at the comments.
Yes, or ignore like the first 10.
Yeah. These are all things that people like have had to learn and like figure out
Yeah.
over the years, over the past decade and a half that this stuff has existed.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of like a learning process as well. Like people just need to start ignoring some stuff. And as that happens, over time, that stuff will become cringe and it won't matter.
Sure.
Won't have the power. But
And I'm just thinking like, and I don't, maybe this is the wrong way to put this. And I don't mean to be like stepping on anybody's anything here, but it's like to a certain extent, there are some freedoms that you shouldn't exercise. You know what I mean? Like that's social contract theory. It's like you give up some of your freedoms in exchange for a stable and safe society. Ghost Energy cereal is not a freedom you should exercise, right? Playing Raid Shadow Legends is not a freedom you should exercise. It's a shit game. Don't do it.
do you know anyone that has a Ridge wallet? Either of you?
Yes.
Sponsors.
No, but seriously,
You're trying to get sponsored here.
So many people are sponsored by Ridge. I have never met a person with a Ridge wallet in my life.
I have never met anybody with Raycons. I just for the first time ever saw somebody with Raycons. One of my coworkers has Raycons. But
I think a lot of
before
people just buy them because they're cheap headphones you can get.
But before this, I've never seen anybody with Raycons. I had never seen anybody with a Ridge wallet. I have seen people drink Athletic Greens.
Okay.
I have seen Athletic Greens. I have seen Liquid. So Liquid IV is legit. I have seen people
Yeah,
with
that's a
Liquid
real
IV.
thing.
But some of these are kind of like fake sponsorship.
Well, it's like how much of this is money laundering? Like how much of it is like, yeah, like all this money we're taking or we're like putting out, like it went to advertising expenses, but like maybe some of it's just getting funneled to like a person who knows someone or whatever as like a shell account, whatever. Because like I don't know anyone with a Ridge wallet.
Is Ridge Wallet just a shell corp? Is it just like a fake?
I've seen them only in videos. Like
Yeah, that's a good point.
for how many ads of them I see, how do they have the money to,
I don't know. And you've been in many different parts of you've been around and
Yeah.
you live in a different part of the country.
I
than
ask
do.
people when I interview them, do street interviews, like, do you know anyone with a Ridge wallet? I have yet to find someone with
Should
one
that-
or knows anyone with one.
The thing is, I have, and we'll get to these in a minute here. I have like fun questions or, just questions I like to ask every guest at the end of the show. Should I incorporate that? Should I incorporate, have you seen a Ridge wallet? Have you seen Raycon earbuds? Have you tried Liquid IV?
I think so. I think
I might
this
have to add it.
This is stuff we need to get to the bottom of.
Should I ask Manu and Ross that? They're coming on the show. When we get
Yeah,
to the Rangers. I mean,
you
hopefully.
should ask them if
I don't want to say that. And then it
watch
doesn't
Manu
happen.
have a Ridge wallet.
It's planned. They're planning to come on the show. It'll make it happen.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what I'll do. Maybe that'll start to be a question because it is a good question because it is a good point. Like they sponsor every podcast
Yeah.
and you never see them. And apparently, and they keep coming back like week after week. So clearly somebody's using the code.
Yeah, because is it possible that the content that I watch just sponsors? Like, do they sponsor all the content that I watch, and it's just like a connection thing?
Maybe I don't.
But
know.
then I would probably know someone who has a Ridge wallet, and I don't.
Right. You don't know anybody with
Raycons I have seen people with, but I don't think there's something that people like seek out. they just happen to be like affordable headphones that
If
people
Manu
get.
and Ross pull out Ridge wallets, I'd laugh so hard.
That would be.
I would laugh so hard.
I know people who have Ridge style wallets, but it's not that brand. It's just like a
Yes.
card holder.
Yes.
Right, but the specific Ridge wallet, I have never met anyone that has one in real life. Oh, what about you, Mike? You know any Ridge wallet owners?
I think I've seen one.
Okay.
Right.
so-
Well, okay, one's still not that many. I mean, you'd expect to see at least two.
At least
least
two
two.
for that advertising budget.
At least two. I mean,
Because
I
aren't they
wonder-
pretty cheap? I thought they were like $15.
Maybe people just buy one and then it breaks and they go never again.
I don't know.
I'm going back to my dad's. This is not your dad's wallet. That's always their branding.
Is that what it is?
I think so. Their ads are always like, "This isn't your dad's wallet." I think my dad's wallet. I think my dad's had the same wallet for like a long time and it's still doing very well.
Yeah.
So
Got himself a nice real leather wallet there.
yeah, right. Not one of those aluminum, Damascus steel, whatever these crazy
Yeah, whatever Ridge
things they
wallet
have
is.
going
Yeah.
on. Yeah.
Titanium.
Seriously, like, what is this? The Cybertruck of wallets? There's no crumpled zone on this Ridge wallet.
There's no crumple zone on this wallet. Yeah. Tired of wallets taking them all this space in your pocket? Like,
God, so I did say I thought it would have been hilarious. Before I went to see the A24 Civil War movie.
yeah, let's talk about that a little bit, actually.
Sure,
I haven't seen it. Mike, you've seen it, right?
No.
You haven't? Okay.
we will talk about this, but first things first. I thought that it was really good. It was incredibly difficult to watch. I thought that the things that the movie did right were. It was not ideological.
Yeah.
It was not inherently political. I think that was a smart move. I think that was the best move.
Well, I think that was more realistic, too.
Yes, absolutely. Like, it would not be an ideological thing, I don't think. I think you're kind of right about that. Like, it would be more chaos. The movie was very good.
Well, people were making fun of like the map when it came out too in the previews. They're like, Texas allying with California. Who made this? And it's like, why is that like weird? Like,
It's not. I mean,
It's
seemed
not,
kinda-
like-
it seemed kind of crazy to me in the moment, but when I think about it, it's not. I mean, aren't those the two biggest economies in the country?
yeah,
They are,
the
right?
two
So, I
biggest
mean,
economies. They have, California has a ton of military bases, special naval.
Texas has oil.
Texas has its own armed forces, like in addition to the National Guard
Yeah.
and the norm. They have like a Texas Guard
yeah,
as well.
they do. They have a lot of oil as well.
Yeah.
Strategically,
Population.
right? A lot of population. Those two states.
They both see themselves as very like unique within the United States.
Yes. Yes.
So like,
It would not be the craziest thing for those two to make some sort of at the very least an economic partnership in that kind of a situation. So I thought that the movie did a really good job at portraying chaos randomly, just as it was happening to people on the street, like what it would be. It would be utterly devastating for everybody, regardless of maybe very wealthy people would be better off, but in terms of like class, everybody in the middle and lower class is being equally affected by this. It's seemingly regardless of race, gender, political party, anything.
and like aspect of that is like the internet just doesn't work.
No.
Like it was like out throughout the entire country in that scenario, right?
Yes.
People are like tuning into radios and stuff.
Yeah, they were turning into radios. They were there were some places I think that still had like Wi-Fi, like and so I thought that the movie was people wanted it to be a war movie.
Yeah.
They wanted a movie with. I mean, the craziest thing to me ever was that some people's reactions were like, "Oh, there wasn't enough fighting." It was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
There was a lot of death in
It-
that
I mean,
movie.
it was supposed to primarily be a movie about like war journalism.
Yes, it's a referendum on war journalism. It's not necessarily a war movie. Jeremiah Cutright had a good criticism. He was like, "There is no way the special operators would have let war journalists like follow
Yeah,
them
that's
in
what a
to
lot of
kill the
people were
president,
saying,
right?"
but,
Like, so in that respect, perhaps a little unrealistic. But I thought it was very realistic in the sense that there was a lot of senseless, chaotic violence. It was devastating. It was very tough to watch. Just Americans just killing each other was just not easy. People wanted it to be simple. They wanted it to be ideological. They wanted their side to be the good guys
Yeah.
and the other side to
Should
be the
we
bad
watch
guys.
that this weekend and do like a review?
I'd be down if we have time.
We'll get
Do we have
some,
do we have
we'll get
time for
some
that?
red sunglasses.
Sure. Yeah. Do we have time for that?
We'll figure it out.
We might have time for that. I would be down.
We can get a bunch of not just us. We can get a bunch of people.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to. I was gonna write a review for my Substack, and then I honestly kind
I
of.
mean, I
felt
wanted
like,
to make a video just, it's gonna be late now, but I'll probably still do it just on like the fact that people were making fun of the map, and then I was gonna talk about like the Spanish Civil War, and
Yep.
then like the Russian Revolution. It's like how there's like these weird things. Like a lot of socialists fought for the White Army just because they didn't like the Bolsheviks. Like
Yep.
the Basques allied with the anarchists, even though they were super conservative, just because they wanted independence from Spain.
Yep.
Like XYZ. So, I think if you look at like the history of like civil wars, like that's like more realistically what happens. But people
Yes.
have like, and I think it's because the actual American Civil War that we had was pretty much like that. So people think it's going to be straightforward again if it ever happens.
which it would never be, because what are you gonna do? Separate the red and blue states? They're all mixed together. Like, you wouldn't be able to have any clear lines of like red versus blue. You know what I mean? Like,
it's cities versus like rural areas.
yeah, like it wouldn't really make sense in that aspect. So, yeah, I thought that it was good. I thought that I liked it. People's reactions were kind of insane. And why did I originally start talking about this? Oh, that's what I was gonna start talking about. Whenever I first was walking in to go see it, I was like, it would be hilarious if like they wouldn't actually do this, but I was like, it'd be so funny if like after one of those battle scenes in that movie, if like Mr. Beast showed up with like giving everybody Beast burgers, and he was like, "These soldiers carry a lot of equipment on their back, and that's why they gotta loosen up wherever they get this Ridge Wallet sponsorship. Like, they're carrying a little bit lighter equipment." Like, I don't know, it was just kind of
The
funny.
entire
Yeah.
thing was just a Mr. Beast prank gone awry. Like,
I think that it would have been so funny. Like, in my head, I was like, "Oh, it would have been."
yeah, if this
Obviously,
president can have a third term and survive, I'll give him $10 million. Like,
Right. No, seriously, like, no, but I was just waiting for like, I was like, it would be so funny if like after they were like doing sponsorships in the movie, they were like handing out Beast burgers, they were giving out Ridge wallets to people. They were like, these soldiers got to stay hydrated. Liquid IV, there's a Liquid IV truck, just like an AC 130 flies in and just pallets of Liquid IV just being passed out to people. Which would not have happened. That was kind of a funny thing. I was like, wouldn't it be so crazy if they just, because here's the thing, like, they would do that. Like, there will be some kind of movie or TV show in the future where there's like a corporate sponsorship like in the middle of the thing.
yeah.
I feel like it's gonna
Well, I
happen.
mean, that's what product
anyway.
placement is.
Yeah, but I feel like eventually they're just gonna start like doing an actual legit ad break. Like, the character's gonna break the fourth wall any minute now and just tell you about why you need to get this new product.
Yeah. Probably. They'll just like pass it off as like an ironic thing, but it literally is an ad. I don't know.
And then if you watch to the end of the movie, in the final credits, there's like a link. There's a QR code you can scan to go to the sponsored product. They're gonna make some sort of documentary about Trump, and Zinn will like have a bit in the documentary. Zinn will like. They should I'm not kidding. They should sponsor him. At this point, they should sponsor him. They should do something with him. He should just start popping Zins mid-debate. I've said this for months. In the middle of Joe stumbling over.
Is that going to make their stock go up or down is the question.
Well, so their entire demographic is... so, like, here's what the Nelk Boys are to my estimation. The Nelk Boys are... There is now kind of a new group of younger people in this country, and maybe they've always existed. I just haven't really noticed them until now. The Nelk Boys are these kind of like pseudo right-wing frat boys, in the sense that like they're not necessarily, when I say pseudo right-wing, I don't mean that they're faking it.
Yeah.
I just mean that most
People
of the
just
time,
assume they are.
most of the time they don't talk politics, right?
Yeah.
They don't necessarily get political, but they kind of have more of a conservative temperament. They will probably at the end of the day walk into the voting booth and vote red. Right, they'll have Trump on the show.
Mm-hmm.
They'll get sort of political for him,
Yeah.
but also they are in it to make money. And the Nelk Boys are brilliant at like understanding culture, so they're like kind of right wing, but they're also like in their 30s, so they're not like frat bros anymore. They're like sort of right wing, sort of frat bros. And I feel like that's Zinn's You know, Tucker Carlson is like sort of right wing, sort of frat
Yeah.
bro. Like he's the populist right. He kind of goes after corporations. He's kind of at this point like talking out against this current version of capitalism we have. Like, I wonder if he has kind of moved a little bit more towards the center than he was when he was with Fox.
No, definitely.
But he's like a sort of right wing, sort of frat bro kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I feel like that's what the Nelk Boys are. I feel like that's kind of Zinn's core audience.
Yeah,
Yes,
there you go.
exactly. Barstool is sort of right wing, sort of frat bros, right? Like Dave Portnoy goes on Fox News and will like do a bit, but then at the same time, like he probably isn't entirely right wing. So I think if Trump, in the middle of Biden stumbling over a word, packs a fat Zinn in his cheek, the stock might go up.
Like,
Because at this
when
point,
he's supposed to respond, and he's just like pops one.
yes, yes, I'm not kidding. Like, take a pause, pull out the Zinn can, show it to the camera. Get him a custom Zinn can with like "God bless the USA" or whatever the fuck. Show it to the camera, pop it open,
Make it
pack
better.
pack a fat Zinn in the cheek or whatever, and then just start going crazy because there are how many really like left wing people are like all in on Zinn.
Yeah, I can't think of it.
I imagine not many, right? Like it's not many.
Don
So,
Lemon do Zinn?
and
Like-
for those who don't know, like Zinn is the nicotine pouches. They're supposedly
Yeah.
like cutting out all of the harsh chemicals or whatever.
basically
It's
nicotine gum, right?
like nicotine
It's
gum.
like
It's just in a
Big
pouch.
It's Big League Chew with nicotine in it.
Yes,
Like,
exactly. And they have a brilliant marketing strategy, and like Shane Gillis loves them. Like a lot of people, but again,
Yeah.
Shane Gillis kind of sort of right wing.
yeah.
Shane Gillis is kind of a sort of right wing, sort of frat bro comedian, right? Like that's kind of what he is.
That's
So
their demographic.
right, like that's their demographic. Like, and there's, and again, I don't know if those people existed before. I feel like the internet has birthed these new archetypes of people, and one of the new archetypes is the sort of right wing, sort of frat bro.
Yeah, I think that was always a thing.
That might have always been a thing.
It
Now that might have always been a thing, but it feels like they have more of a spotlight now. I guess everybody has more of a spotlight now, though. But it feels like like the Nelk Boys are really popular.
Yeah.
They've done some big stuff. They're gonna have Trump on again. Like Trump should do a pre-debate game show with Nelk in the backstage or wherever they're doing this debate. Because they just went to Mar-a-Lago and he just like pulled up, just walked in the room, just sat down, just went off for like an hour and a half, and then went to go play golf again. I think.
Well, Christian, Gen Z males are
Yes.
Republican more.
Yes, and so. And
Yeah,
we
it's the
could
most
also,
like polarized
oh
generation.
gosh, we're getting it now. We're an hour 47. We're getting into another thing. I was like, Gavin, this won't be a long episode.
No,
Psych,
well,
Gavin.
Sorry, Gavin.
No, he
Should have been here. Should have been here to control us, right?
We're sad that he's not here. He's with us in spirit. But that is a thing we've actually seen. There is actually data on this, and I'll try to throw this in post too. I have a lot of stuff to throw in post for this episode. Yikes.
Throw up some graphics.
Yeah, throw up a graphic. So it does seem that Gen Z men are going more to the right. Gen Z women are going more to the left.
Yeah, it's
So
Gen Z
we are
is
seeing like
it's
stratification.
yeah, it's simultaneously the most conservative and progressive generation.
Isn't that very interesting?
Yeah.
Is that the result of being? Now, here's an honest question for you.
I think
Is
it's the result of politics getting like kind of cool too. Like
Interesting.
that's the thing. Like it used to be boring, and like it's cool that it's cool,
Sure.
but it's also got like there's bad things about it being cool, right? Like
Sure. Sure. Do you think any of it has? Because I've been thinking about this too. Do you think any of it has to do with? And again, I don't think this is a uniquely Gen Z perspective. I think that every generation kind of goes through this. But do you think it does kind of seem like more than ever that there are these very large problems in the world? Climate change. In America, we have the gun violence stuff is a real problem. Like, there's a lot of these problems that, and it is probably because of social media, they might seem bigger than they really are, or I don't know. But do you think any of this is a result of Gen Z being told from a young age that, because when I was a kid, I was told a lot like the children of the future, you guys are the future leaders of the country. And there was a lot of optimism in that. And then it seemed like at some point along the way, we were told that less and less. And obviously, as you get older, you are going to be told that less
I think
and less.
yeah, I think that's what millennials were more told.
We-
But we were alive still, so we heard it.
Right. We were told that less and less and less. And at the same time, we were told, oh, well, you guys are going to have to fix all the problems.
Yeah.
You guys are going to, and it's like, okay, well, what do you think that does to a generation? Does that essentially make them more ideological, more political, because they're going, okay, I'm not really being told I'm the future. maybe my outlook on the future.
Yeah, I think
isn't
so,
so bright,
because
not
things
as optimistic as I could have been. And
things
I'm also
seem more
being told-
serious for sure.
Yeah,
Like,
and at the same time being told that there's all these problems that seem so insurmountable to me, but I am being told that my generation has to fix them.
yeah. No, I think for sure because it makes life more serious. So, but
And in a sense, like Gen Z it's really funny. Like Gen Z, like kind of has to be growing up very quick, and I feel like social media is completely stagnating that. First time on the show, and we've just met.
come on, like we'll just share.
Take a
What's
seat.
up? Yeah.
Show.
What's up, Unite America? No, I think it's really interesting about the conversation about Gen Z males is fascinating
Very interesting, right?
because I think it's when we think about, as someone who grew up online, I think about things like Gamergate and like getting
sure.
mad at like feminists and social justice warrior stuff online. And, me being like, oh, like the alt-right pipeline.
Sure.
I knew so many kids that were falling down that at the time. You know? And and then people like Ben Shapiro and Steven Crowder were like, ooh, that is a market I could latch
I think
onto.
that's something that young people should be taught about ideology in general. Is that like for it doesn't really matter what the ideology is. Their primary target is disaffected people. It's young people, and when I say disaffected, I mean people that are people, because I think what happens is people grow up and ideologies offer people homes. They offer you easy answers about the world. They offer you explanations for people that you disagree with. They offer you solutions to things. And then I think some people, and you see it happen, like people that voted for Trump in 2016, then vote for Biden in 2020, vice versa. People leave, right? Ideologies are constantly having this turnover rate of people that are coming and going. And their primary target is a disaffected person that just left an ideology that is now looking for a new home. Yeah. And I think that people like Steven Crowder and Ben Shapiro, and there's people on the left doing it too, like David Pakman probably is doing it. They are looking for the same thing, right? Like people on the left are looking for the disaffected Trump voter. The people on the right are looking for the disaffected Biden voter.
Yeah, there's a really good podcast that I listened to. I think the New York Times did this little like podcast docuseries about that kind of idea about he found himself in like a political like terrorist group online that started out like where he fell down like such a pipeline.
Yeah.
And luckily he caught himself before like anything terrible happened, but he gave the New York Times his entire YouTube search history. And it showed how the algorithm
slowly makes you more and more extreme.
I'm gonna find it. I would link it. I'll link it to you guys. But it was a really fascinating listen because it started off with him because he was a disenfranchised young white male. He worked in a factory and just had headphones and listened to podcasts. And he just he liked Joe Rogan episodes talking about crazy alien conspiracies. Then all of a sudden, someone like Jordan Peterson autoplayed on. Then someone like
sure, and then
down that rabbit hole.
Sure. Yeah, and that's another thing we're not. And again, like this is like social media literacy courses.
Yeah,
should have a section about social media, talking about the algorithms. I do think people, the whole thing they were always advertised as, oh, the algorithms, you control. It's catered to you. You control it. No, you don't. I think after a while, people are controlled by their algorithms, 100%.
Yeah,
and they get controlled by it, and people don't see that for what it is. And because again, social media is built on such an echo chamber culture, people don't see that at all. And then before you know it, you do become, and that can happen. That was the whole point of The Social Dilemma, a documentary that they did a couple of years ago, in like 2017 or whatever they did that. Or maybe
it was on Netflix, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe it's later than that. I forget, but. And that documentary was spooky as hell because it seemed so real, and it really illustrated that. Like the algorithm will do that to you. It will eventually control you. And I made the joke. I was with Jeremiah a couple weeks ago, and I made the joke to him. I was like, if I scroll too far on Instagram, they think I'm like a fascist. Like, if I scroll too far, I go into like right-wing conspiracy Instagram, and I'm like, I don't want to be here. Like, I don't know what any of this is. Like, I don't know what kind of person Instagram thinks I am. But I like a couple like when the Maui fires happened. Like, if I scrolled too far, it was like, oh, direct energy weapon. They're gonna buy all the land that they burned, and I'm just like, geez, I don't think it was a direct energy weapon, guys.
Oh, the blue thing.
Yeah. It's like I like they fed that to me, and I didn't engage, and I just kind of didn't engage with any of it. But it's funny. It's like I think eventually that does happen.
Yeah, I think you can go in like circle. Like I think what it'll eventually do is you'll arc around the whole thing. Like you'll go that way, and then it'll eventually bring you back, and all of a sudden you're watching Bosch videos, and then like like another 2 years you're back, and like it just. Because like that,
exactly.
That's the best way to keep you in the system.
People get
changing, right?
Exactly. The system, and when I say the system is designed in this way, I don't mean like a shadowy cabal of like hooded figures in a room. I just mean that it's the natural functioning of ideology and the natural functioning of the social media platforms to have a constant turnover rate. And the ideologies do that by constantly raising the bar of entry. The purity tests get higher and higher and higher and higher. No matter the deeper in you go. You have to believe all the right things. You have to follow all the right stuff. If you say the wrong thing, you get kicked out. And then when you get kicked out, you feel betrayed. And you go, well, all of a sudden there's another group offering you a new space. And then you go there. And then it turns out they're doing the exact same thing.
Yeah. Kind of going off this, but something that's like been bothering me at least is I don't know if you guys are following the WNBA at all, but the narratives around what's happening this season are just...
I haven't been following it specifically, but like people need to leave Caitlin Clark the fuck alone. Like that's been my whole thing is like, can we not, does this young woman want 18,000 headlines and social media posts about her a day, everyone having a different take whenever none of them know her?
Oh my gosh, yeah. And what I wanted to center on is just the racial dog whistles conversations are just like, are you kidding me?
What's the girl, Angel Reese.
Angel Reese. Shouts out the Chicago Sky. They're doing well.
They've created this like and who knows? Maybe there is really beef between those two. Maybe they're doing it for clicks and headlines. But it's like it's getting wild. It's getting crazy. And honestly, I think hey. Let's keep the headlines to the sports. That's what these women are fantastic at, better than most other people. Any of them could beat me in basketball, and that's not saying much because I don't ever play basketball. But it's like they could beat most people out there in this. Like they're better than most. Like they're in the WNBA for a reason. Like let them play the sport. Stop with all these headlines trying to create drama all the time. Like let them live their lives, dude. Like it's crazy.
No, but just like. Yeah, just like there's just like really like weird racial undertones that like
it's very.
And I think that like it reminds me of like
that weird one with like I don't know if you saw the one with like with double mics with Charlemagne and Bill Maher.
I'm not familiar.
It was like weird. He was I only saw a clip of it, but
was it on Bill Maher's podcast?
I don't remember if it was. It looked like in a different studio, so it might have been on his main show.
Okay.
But like it was what you were saying. Like Bill Maher was like saying like, "Oh, you're basically doing that," and he's like, "No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying like,
right?
No, I'm just saying like
one of these players is really thuggish, while the other player plays the game the right way."
Yeah.
It's so crazy. And then all these people on social media that are like, oh, I'm still not going to watch the dub. And it's like, hey, how about this? It's not for everybody. Like, that's the other thing. Like, at the end of the day, sports aren't for everybody. Like, you're allowed to say, hey, I don't watch I don't watch any sports. I watch professional disc golf. That's it. That's the only sport that I watch. That's it. I don't watch any other sport.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. No one watches my sport, which is volleyball.
Yeah, like, that's cool. Like, and not everybody has to, and that's okay. It's like not going to be a thing where everyone... All of a sudden, not everyone's gonna like the WNBA. It's not gonna happen. More people might, and that's great. But it's not everybody. It's never going to be.
I think it's crazy that people like are just bleeding heart lovers and supporters of corporations, like billion-dollar corporations. Like that's their identity. Like how could they do this? How could they turn to the woke mob? How could they?
Right.
And
also, people are also like bleeding heart, like. Fans of like players that they've never met and that don't know who you are. It's like these parasocial relationships have gotten very strange.
Yeah.
But I've also never really been into sports. So I've never really had that kind of an attachment to an athlete before.
Not even like Paul Macbeth.
That's crazy. You know who Paul Macbeth is. That's cool. No, but even then, like I don't have any specific attachment to a disc golfer. Like I like it because it's an individual sport. I don't have to root for a team. I don't care who wins because most of them seem like good people and they're fun to watch. And I don't really care who wins.
Who's the other really good guy? He's like some white lanky guy.
Gannon Burr, who's 19. He's like 6'9".
Yeah.
He's wild. Yeah, he wins all the time. Again, I don't want to take everyone into disc golf land. We're losing viewers by the minute now. But
welcome to the world's best disc golf podcast. So.
right. I'm not even doing that either. But I've never had that kind of attachment to an athlete. When I watch disc golf, I don't care who wins. Truly, I might get sad, right? Like if someone has a bad break or has an unlucky thing and they lose, like, oh, that sucks. But it's like I'm not angry at the person that then won. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't really have that kind of an attachment to any of the athletes. But anyway, I think we're going to wrap here. I guess I have questions for Mike. I'm sorry, you jumped in right at the end.
I did, yeah.
You
Hello.
Kind of popped in, and you're Christian's friend, and you've got us in this room here today, so I really appreciate that.
Yeah, shouts out. Shouts out my rich friend's apartment.
This is a really nice building. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
it is really nice.
Oh,
yeah.
this is a beautiful room we've got here recording, and this is not the new studio for anybody who thought that was real. This is not really. We'll be back at Point Park very soon, but I guess we'll wrap up here. I have some fun little questions for. I guess we have them for both of you can answer. Let's pass the mic back and forth. Well, we start with whoever wants to start. Yeah, Christian.
Order, yeah.
What's your favorite part of your job?
Favorite part of my job, like in bridging, obviously. You mean?
Yeah, or if you're a man of many jobs, you can go through each one and.
Yeah, I'll go through just like bridging, then like video editing.
Yeah, sure.
So I'll start with bridging. My favorite part about it is just like meeting so many like great people that I get to be very close, like lifelong friends with that are interested in the same things I am, but then also help me expand my knowledge as well. Because if they're from a different political background than me, or even if they are not and they're just interested in different aspects of it than me, it's a really good wealth of knowledge, I think. Yeah,
and just a very very quick aside, like that's the thing, like people that don't know the bridging space, it's not all centrist, it's not all right wing people, it's a mixture.
Yeah,
of
no,
everybody.
it's about like it's people. Everyone kind of has the same temperament. Like they're people who are interested in having those discussions. But I think like that's everyone that when I was doing political science in college, everyone that made it past freshman year was that type of person. Like the super hardline ideological dogmatic people that didn't want to have those conversations, they couldn't because they got pissed at every professor at some point or another. So they couldn't work in group projects. They couldn't handle like slight disagreements with professors. So they did not make it through that. They just went straight into like activism usually if they stayed with politics or they just did something on their own.
Activism.
But most of the people that made it through, they have like the same temperament and they're interested in the same stuff, and they're into it because it's interesting to them, not necessarily because they're on one side or the other. Even if they are, like they actually want to work in government, make a difference, XYZ. So yeah. And then as far as like video editing goes, my favorite part of it is even if no one watches a video I make, it's a really good feeling to like have an idea and make it come to life.
Yes.
It's really satisfying. It's a lot of work. I think a lot of people think that creating content is just fun and very easy, and it is very fun, but it's a slog, right? It's
brutal sometimes.
Like there's a meme where it shows like the life of a YouTuber, and then it's like it shows like a little like it's supposed to look like an editing reel, like, and it's a little slice of like the actual like making the video and getting views, and then the rest is just editing.
Right. And to be fair, we're not comparing this to like working in the trades or anything. Like, not saying that it's a hard job in that sense, but there is a big misconception that it's like easy. It's not necessarily.
I think
easy.
the amount of time that goes into creating a video, people think it. You can whip that up in 3 hours. If it's a long form video, absolutely not.
No.
But
even editing sometimes editing like a 2 or 3 minute little short video with a lot of detail in it.
A well edited TikTok will take you 5 hours.
Yeah, many hours.
And it might not even get views. Like that's the problem with it. Like that's really the thing that I think turns a lot of people off to creating content is because like I could put in all this effort and get 0 views.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the barrier to
You have to
entry.
really love it.
Yeah, you have to like it. You have to
really-
keep working at it, and
really
it's not something that happens overnight for the vast majority of people. But it
Yeah.
is fun, so I do think most people should try it at least.
Sure. And Mike, what about you, sir? Favorite part of
Yeah.
your job? What is your job? Give the people a
I work in production.
like myself.
Yeah.
Not really. I don't know.
My favorite part of my job is having a set run well.
Oh gosh, yes. Oh, gosh,
you
yes.
you said a lot of the words that kind of sum up my feelings about TV and film production, and yeah, that's why I'm behind the camera. I don't really talk.
Your favorite part of your job is when you prepare for things to go wrong, but you don't need any of the preparations.
Correct. Yeah.
A lot of production is just like put a bunch of padding around you because something's gonna go wrong at some point in the process.
100%.
You got to deal with it when it happens.
Yeah, you got to prepare for both you, the equivalent of you drowning and having your car on fire at the same time.
Right, and then hope that maybe only one of them happens.
Yeah, but they're both happening at the same
Right,
time.
they both happen. Yeah.
But yeah, no, just
Just some part of the creative process, and then are you a person that likes you like putting the puzzle to you like putting it together, like putting the plan together, and then someone executes,
I'm more of a pre-production guy.
which is the most important for anyone that doesn't know. That's like the most important phase of everything in the production world.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. It's just like the way I view things is just, dude, I feel really put on the spot right now, man. Like I'm like thinking about
I
it,
didn't
but
mean to. If you don't want to answer any of these, because these get deeper, you don't have to.
no. Yeah, I just like the planning. That's just the way that my mind works, and we can go to the next question. I'm liking this. I'm enjoying
No, of
this.
course, no, I like that, but I get what you're saying. Like that's why I got into production too. Is I'm maybe not as much into the pre-production as you. I'm maybe more of like the actual production side, but still like seeing everything come together is so much fun. Like watching, like actually having a plan and seeing it. Well, that I guess applies to everything, but with production, it's like there's so many moving pieces sometimes.
100%
To all of that, like, and then seeing everybody get to execute their job and have fun doing it is like the best. That's the most fun feeling.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want to talk about like your current project at the end or something?
Oh, sure. I can plug.
Yeah,
Sure, yeah, you can
wanna-
plug. Sure,
do you want
plug.
to do it right now? Or?
Yeah, plug something.
I have. Well, it's not gonna be out for a while. It's gonna be out. My next feature film. It's called "The Wizard and the Fool," about a lonesome man in the streets of Chicago, down on his luck, meets a guy dressed as a wizard, dressed in a wizard costume, who we never learn his real name.
Okay, that's cool.
And he just called me the wizard, and they run around Chicago saving people from this idea of sadness, quote unquote.
Okay.
And we kind of examine like what that really means, and we examine that impossible question.
Okay, I really like that.
Yeah,
That's
and
cool.
so that's all I'm saying for now.
Sure.
Any Saudi princes that want to see that?
Yeah, please,
Right.
please,
If you
please.
want to fund this and this show, the DMs and emails are open.
Yeah, 100%. My Instagram will be in the bio.
Okay, now back to Christian. What gives you again after everything we talked about today, all of the numerous problems that we solved? What gives you hope for the future?
I think people are kind of being a lot more realistic recently, it seems like, in terms of trying to actually make something happen. People are getting a little sick of like, it's like, oh, like my side's winning, but nothing is happening.
Yes.
And, at the end of the day, most people, even if they have like their ideological bents, they want society to improve. And they might disagree about how to do that, but people are getting very fed up with voting for XYZ political candidates or parties and then having nothing change, nothing that they actually voted for happen, even if that political party has a supermajority in both houses and the presidency. And, and I think another good aspect of it is just like people got more into politics, so ideas that weren't talked about for a long time or have never been talked about before, like different potential solutions to things, or looking at how other countries do things and like implementing here, even if it's on the local level or the federal or state. That's more common now. People are generally just a little more educated on politics, and it took like a while for people to get there.
Yeah.
But in the long run, I think that is a good thing.
Sure.
And then as well, I think there's just more of a, more. It's like things are a little more serious now. Like a lot of stuff happened over the last 4 years that have made things really hard for a lot of people. And whenever that happens, people do start to take things a little more seriously, and that includes like the politicians as well.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, I think we're gonna get more positive changes because it has to happen.
Right.
Like things are pretty like dire for a lot of people.
Sure. Mike?
Yeah, I think it's that our generation, like Gen Z and younger generations like Gen Alpha, like are starting to understand the importance of detox on social media and the detox of just content and just that immediate dopamine release and short, like how evil consuming hours and hours and hours of short form content are. I mean,
Crazy bad.
you know, and also like with the political aspect of it, like honestly, we all know people that have like been disillusioned and disenfranchised and are not on speaking terms with parts of their family. Like that is happening across the country. And I think us as younger generations are like growing into that and seeing like, oh, how that these for-profit corporations and companies are just, you know, creating such a divide in America. And I think I'm seeing in Gen Z and Gen Alpha just a move away from social media or like at least the negative parts of social media. And I think that's, you know, it's something to look forward to.
Yeah, that's undoubtedly a thing. There's definitely like a big push right now that's starting to happen across multiple generations, really examining the effects of social media on young people and really understanding that we have to start moving away from that in a lot of ways. Yeah. What is, Christian, what's one piece of advice that you would have liked when you were younger, or just a piece of advice that you know you would give to younger you?
Yeah, so you think you're smart now, but you in 3 years is going to look back at you now as an idiot. So just stay humble.
That's the realest thing that's been said on this show in recent memory. I think about that legitimately every day. I was like, wow, I was so certain that I had at least something figured out. And as I get older, I realize more and more that growing up and being an adult is kind of realizing that the point of the game is not to understand everything. It's probably more like to understand yourself as best you can and then go from there.
Yeah, I think
Something
so.
like that, you know.
Yeah, and just, you know, you're going to change over time and you're going to get smarter. Like as you get older, you're going to get wiser.
And don't fight it, probably.
Yeah, you know, like it's going to come natural. Like don't fight it for sure. Like don't be afraid of growing up. Don't be afraid of like doing these things. You know, it's going to happen, so just embrace it, have a good time. Don't you know, miss out on stuff like that.
Of course. Yeah. Mike, what about you, sir?
When you're 16, you're not cool because you have a jewel. It's one of the dumbest things I ever did. Well, it was like such a status symbol in high school, and
It really was.
oh my god, it was
Crazy.
terrible. Yeah, I was like, yeah.
How old are you, sir? Do you mind me asking?
I am 23,
23. Okay, gotcha. Okay.
and so like jewels and all that stuff were all the rage.
Yes.
And it was like, yeah, and now it's like,
Mm-mm.
nah, it's evil.
Don't do it, folks.
But I'm more of a, I mean, that is a serious, but like, I guess, yeah, keep messing up, keep being an idiot.
Yes.
You know,
Don't do anything insane, but just within reason. Let
Yeah.
yourself make mistakes.
yeah, you're still a 17-year-old idiot. What else? You're going to art school was the right call.
Sure. So go for it. Follow the dream.
Oh,
Take the
100%.
risk.
100%. Take the leap, take the jump, you know. I mean,
See if you can make it work.
yeah, 100%.
Do you think there's also a
Read more. Read more.
Yes. Do you think there's also? And again, I don't mean to like. I don't mean to say this as like a mood dampener or anything, but do you think there's also a certain aspect of the follow your dream, like take the leap thing, that there also has to be, from what I've seen, all of my friends are crazy. Christian's crazy. All of my friends in the British are in the best way possible crazy. Like these people have done so much already. There's also, I think, a little piece of you in the back of your head that has to go, okay, if this isn't serving me, you have to stop. Right? Like at some point, you go take the leap. You go do the thing. Is that in your mind at all, do you think? Like after a certain point, do you have to reevaluate and say, hey, I chased this thing. I went after it. Maybe it's not for me anymore. And it's okay to leave that behind and pivot to something and try something else.
100%. I mean, I'm not there yet. I'm still figuring out.
Oh, of course not. And I don't want to.
Yeah.
I don't mean to. When I say that, I don't mean to discourage anybody from their goals, right? I guess maybe just a little bit of like. I hate saying that because even then, nothing I'm doing is realistic. But like, a little bit of in the back of your head. Am I making sense here?
Yeah, like when you got to pick up a day job.
Sure, right. And even then, like I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't have said that because even now I'm getting confused and I'm like contradicting myself a lot. But
No worries.
no, definitely take the leap, but also be willing to reevaluate the leap.
Yeah, don't. It's like anything. I know what you're saying. Like you have this idea, and then if you commit too hardly to the beginning idea and it's not working, you have to go back and like start from ground one. It's like maybe I can still do this, but I have to reevaluate how I'm doing it.
Right. Don't hit your head against the wall.
Yeah, if something's not, if something's not working, you have to maybe start from the beginning again. You know, it's like if
Sure.
you're building a tower, right?
That's a great way to spin what I said. If you have to reevaluate the idea, right? Like,
Yeah, if you're building a tower and it's not structurally sound, but you're really committed to, I want it to look like this, it needs to look like this, but it's not
Right.
working, you're gonna have to go back to the drawing board. Like, don't get too committed to any one idea. There's multiple ways to achieve like a goal.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's it. You guys, this is now your opportunity. Anything that you want to plug that you haven't plugged yet? And Mike, you told us about this feature film. It sounds really cool.
Yeah, so it's probably going to release in like 2025.
Okay.
So, yeah, we're currently in production for it right now. I'll show you some of the I got to show you one of the studios we might be filming at. It's actually insane.
Yeah.
But,
Okay. Well,
I'm making them sign NDAs, so.
yeah, right. I had to sign one to get in here.
Yeah.
Like,
This
yeah,
place
anyway.
doesn't exist.
It does not.
That's actually a green screen. That's
It
not
is. Yeah, this
Chicago
whole
behind
thing's a
us.
green screen. Christian, anything you want to plug? You got it. Well, obviously we'll have United American Movement, everything in the bio and all that.
Yeah, we have hopefully when we have it finished being edited, we did a discussion at your university
Yep.
about a year ago
We did.
on mental health. So we're gonna get all of our official branding and stuff on that and get our animation worked out, and that will be up hopefully within the next month. We're gonna be starting to hopefully in the same time frame film some stuff in this new shared studio here in Chicago.
Yep.
There's one discussion I've been wanting to put on for a really long time, and we're looking for participants right now. We have a few of them, but we need a couple more. Usually we do
Good.
4 people, but I think we're going to have 5 for this one, and it's going to be a religion discussion.
Good.
And it's going to be specifically commonalities and like shared morals and XYZ. What do Christians and Muslims have in common?
That's cool.
There's not a lot of content for that, and I feel like there's a lot of incentive for people to push out the opposite, like get those two groups to fight.
Sure.
I think that's been happening a lot lately, especially with all the stuff going on in the Middle East.
Yes.
So that's something we want to do because it's something that anyone that's from a non-Abrahamic religion looking at those two is like, you guys are the same thing.
Sure.
Like you guys are the same. Like most of the religious figures in both like religious texts are actually like the same people. And like
Right.
a lot of people don't even know that because people don't read both books or either
yeah,
one. Like,
yeah, there are more
so-
commonalities I think that people would like to believe. And I will see you in about a month for the Bridge USA Summit
Yep.
in this same city in Chicago in late July. So that will be very fun. And I wish you both the best of luck on everything, guys. Thanks a lot for doing this.
You as well.
Really appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
All right. Bye, everybody. See you later.